Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. The morning sun painted Biscayne Bay in shades of turquoise and gold, its rays dancing across the water like scattered diamonds. Ian Martinez stood on the balcony of his 23rd floor penthouse, a steaming cup of Cuban coffee warming his hands. At 42, he had the satisfied look of a man who'd built his empire from nothing. Salt and pepper hair swept back, crow's feet etched by years of squinting at shipping manifests under the Florida sun, shoulders broad from his youth loading cargo at the port of Miami. "Mi amor, you're up early again." Rosa's voice floated from behind him, honey sweet with the faint lilt of her Colombian accent. She wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her cheek against his back. Even after 15 years of marriage, her touch still sent a familiar warmth through him. "Couldn't sleep," Ian said, turning to kiss her forehead. "The Santos shipment arrives at 7. Want to make sure everything goes smoothly?" Rosa smiled, her dark eyes crinkling at the corners. At 38, she was still stunning olive skin glowing in the morning light, black hair cascading over her silk robe. "You work too hard. When was the last time you took a real day off?" "Says the woman who spent our anniversary dinner reviewing quarterly reports," Ian teased, pulling her closer. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Someone has to keep your numbers straight. You'd be lost without me." It was true, and they both knew it. Ian's mind drifted back to that sweltering August day in 1995 when he'd first seen her, a struggling accounting student at Florida International University, counting coins at a campus coffee shop to pay for a single cup of black coffee. Something about her determination, the fierce pride in her eyes despite her worn clothes, had drawn him in. "I was thinking about when we met," Ian murmured into her hair. "Remember how you tried to refuse my help with your tuition?" "I didn't want charity," Rosa said, her voice softening. "I'd never met anyone like you, this gringo with kind eyes, offering to pay a stranger's college fees. Best investment I ever made." Ian meant it. Within 2 years of graduating, Rosa had transformed his small import business's chaotic books into a streamlined system. Within 5, she'd helped him expand from a warehouse in Hialeah to a multi-million-dollar operation with contracts across Latin America. "Ian, look at me." Rosa pulled back, cupping his face in her hands. "I have something for you." She produced a black velvet box from her robe pocket. Inside lay a Rolex Submariner, its blue face catching the light. Ian lifted it carefully, noticing the inscription on the back. "Forever yours, R." "Rosa, this is too much. Nothing is too much for the man who gave me everything." Her eyes glistened. 15 years, mi amor. 15 beautiful years." As Ian fastened the watch, he thought about their celebration last night at the Fontainebleau. They'd danced to the same salsa band that had played at their wedding, Rosa moving in his arms like water, other couples stopping to watch. She'd worn the emerald necklace he'd given her on their 10th anniversary, and every man in the room had envied him. "Senor Ian! Senora Rosa!" Carmen's voice called from inside. Their housekeeper of 20 years bustled onto the balcony, her gray hair pinned back, carrying a tray of fresh fruit and pastries. "Breakfast is ready. You need to eat before that big meeting." "Gracias, Carmen." Ian accepted a plate, noticing the older woman's slight frown as she served Rosa. "You feeling all right, senora? You look tired." Rosa's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm fine, Carmen. Just busy with end-of-quarter reports." Carmen muttered something in Spanish that sounded like working too hard before retreating inside. Ian caught the concerned look she shot over her shoulder. "She worries about you," Ian said, reaching for Rosa's hand. "She worries about everyone. It's her way." Rosa squeezed his fingers before pulling away. "I should get dressed. The Ramirez account needs attention, and I have that lunch meeting with the auditors." Ian watched her go, the silk robe swishing around her legs. The penthouse, their dream home, stretched out before him. floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, marble floors Rosa had selected from a quarry in Carrara, paintings by Latin American artists she'd discovered at gallery openings. Every corner held a memory of their life together. His phone buzzed. Bruce Caldwell's name appeared on the screen. "Morning, Bruce. Everything set for the Santos delivery? That's why I'm calling." His business partner's voice was tight. "We might have a problem. Customs is asking questions about the last Colombia shipment. Something about irregular paperwork." Ian's stomach clenched. What kind of questions? Nothing serious yet. Probably just bureaucratic bullshit. But Ian, that container from 2 weeks ago? It never made it to the warehouse. Shows as delivered in the system, but it's not there. That's impossible. Rosa handles all the documentation. I know. Look, I'm not saying anything's wrong. Could be a clerical error, but with customs sniffing around, we need to be careful. After Bruce hung up, Ian stood at the balcony, his coffee growing cold. In 15 years of business, they'd never lost a container. Rosa's systems were flawless, her attention to detail legendary among their clients. The sound of heels on marble drew his attention. Rosa emerged from their bedroom in a black Chanel suit, her hair swept into an elegant chignon. She looked every inch the successful executive, but something in her movements seemed hurried. "I might be late tonight," she said, checking her phone. "The auditors want to review the entire second quarter." "On a Friday?" She kissed his cheek, leaving a trace of her signature jasmine perfume. "You know how they are. Thorough to a fault." As the private elevator whisked her away, Ian noticed she'd forgotten her coffee on the counter, something she never did. Through the windows, he watched her Mercedes disappear into the river of traffic below, a strange unease settling in his chest. "Senor Ian?" Carmen appeared beside him, Rosa's untouched cup in her hands. "She's been forgetting things lately. Yesterday she left her lunch, the day before her reading glasses." "She's stressed about the quarterly reports," Ian said, but the words felt hollow. Carmen's weathered face creased with worry. "In 20 years I never seen her like this, snapping at me over nothing, on the phone all hours speaking quiet. That's not our Senora Rosa." Ian wanted to dismiss Carmen's concerns, but he couldn't shake the image of Rosa's tight smile, the way she'd pulled her hand away at breakfast. Outside, the bay sparkled innocently in the morning sun, but for the first time in years, the view from their perfect life felt somehow fragile. His new Rolex showed 6:47. The Santos shipment would arrive soon, demanding his attention. But as Ian prepared to leave for the port, he found himself glancing at the forgotten coffee cup, at the rumpled sheets visible through their bedroom door, at the life they'd built together that suddenly seemed to shimmer like a mirage in the Miami heat. Martinez import-export had made him wealthy, but Rosa had made him whole. The thought of anything threatening that wholeness sent a chill through him despite the warm morning air. He pushed the feeling aside. After 15 years, he knew his wife better than anyone. Whatever was troubling her, they'd face it together. They always had. The Equinox Gym in Aventura Mall thrummed with the sounds of privilege, the whir of high-end treadmills, the clink of chrome weights, the murmur of conversations about stock portfolios and vacation homes. Rosa Martinez moved through her yoga poses with practiced grace, her designer workout clothes clinging to her toned form. "And again, the auditors want to see everything," she said into her Bluetooth earpiece, loud enough for the women on nearby mats to hear. "Yes, every transaction from April through June. I'll be there late." She ended the call with an exaggerated sigh, catching the sympathetic look from Melissa Winters, wife of a prominent real estate developer. "Working Friday night again?" Melissa asked, rolling up her mat. "Girl, you need to tell Ian to hire you an assistant." Rosa laughed, the sound bright and false. "You know how it is. The company is our baby. I couldn't trust anyone else with the books." It was 6:15 p.m., and Rosa had been at the gym for exactly 45 minutes, long enough to be seen, to establish her alibi. She'd made sure to check in on the gym's app, posting a sweaty selfie to Instagram with the caption, "Friday night yoga flow, namaste work-life balance." In the locker room, she changed quickly, replacing her workout clothes with a black cocktail dress she'd hidden in her gym bag. Her hands trembled slightly as she applied fresh lipstick, not from nerves, but from anticipation. 3 months. It had been 3 months since that night at the Four Seasons bar when Randall Blake had approached her with his easy smile and those devastating blue eyes. She'd been there for a legitimate business dinner, waiting for a client who'd canceled last minute. She should have left. Instead, she'd let him buy her a drink. "You don't look like the typical Miami Beach wife," he'd said, sliding onto the bar stool beside her. "And what does a typical Miami Beach wife look like?" she'd asked, amused despite herself. "Botox, bleached blonde, boring." His eyes had traveled over her appreciatively. "You're something else entirely." Now, as Rosa drove her Mercedes through the evening traffic, she thought about how easily she'd fallen into his orbit. Randall was everything Ian wasn't: dangerous, unpredictable, with an edge that made her feel alive in ways she hadn't felt in years. Ian was comfort and stability. Randall was fire. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ian. "Hope the auditors aren't giving you too much trouble. Don't wait up, Bruce and I are reviewing the Santos shipment. Love you." Guilt flickered through her, quick and sharp as a paper cut. She pushed it aside. Ian would be at the warehouse until at least midnight, going through manifests with his typical obsessive attention to detail. He'd never know. The valet at the Ritz-Carlton took her keys with a knowing smile. She was becoming a regular every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday night for the past 2 months. Always the same suite on the 15th floor. Always paid for in cash. Randall opened the door before she could knock, pulling her inside with hungry hands. "You're late." "Traffic," she gasped as his mouth found her neck. "And I had to make sure—" "Shh." He pressed a finger to her lips. No talk about him. Not here. Here was their sanctuary, their escape from the real world. Here she wasn't Rosa Martinez, devoted wife and chief financial officer. She was just a woman drowning in desire, letting herself be swept away by this man who made her feel 25 again. Later, as they lay tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets, Randall traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "When are you going to leave him?" Rosa stiffened. "We've discussed this." "No, you've avoided it." He propped himself on an elbow, his expression serious. "I'm tired of sneaking around, Rosa. I want you all to myself. It's not that simple. The business, our life together, money." Randall laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what this is about? I have money, more than you know." She sat up, pulling the sheet around her. "It's not about money. Ian and I built that company together. I can't just walk away." "Can't? Or won't?" The challenge in his voice made her angry. "You don't understand. 15 years, Randall. 15 years of what? Playing the perfect wife? Pretending to be satisfied with missionary position twice a month?" The slap came before she realized she'd moved, the crack of her palm against his cheek echoing in the suite. They stared at each other, both breathing hard. "I'm sorry," Randall said finally. "That was cruel." "Yes, it was." Rosa's voice was ice. He pulled her back down, gentling her with kisses. "I'm jealous, that's all. The thought of you going home to him, sleeping in his bed." "Don't." She closed her eyes. "Please, just don't." They made love again, slower this time, with a desperate edge that left them both shaking. As Rosa dressed to leave, Randall watched from the bed, his expression unreadable. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, "about what I do. You said you were an investor from New York. That's partially true." He ran a hand through his tousled blonde hair. "I do invest, but my main focus is more specialized. I help companies with certain kinds of problems." Rosa paused in zipping her dress. "What kinds of problems?" "The kind that require discrete solutions. Moving money, restructuring assets, avoiding unwanted attention from authorities." A chill ran down her spine. "Are you saying I'm saying I could help you if you wanted. Make it easier to start fresh." His eyes were intense. "All those company funds you manage. There are ways to protect your interests." "I should go." Rosa grabbed her purse, suddenly eager to leave. "Ian will be home soon." "Think about it," Randall called as she reached the door. "You deserve more than a life of pretense." The drive home passed in a blur. Rosa's mind raced, processing Randall's revelation. What kind of man had she gotten involved with? And more troubling, why did the danger make her want him more? She arrived home at 10:47, carefully timing it to seem plausible for a late audit review. The penthouse was dark except for the ambient lighting Carmen always left on. Rosa kicked off her heels, padding barefoot to the kitchen for water. "How were the auditors?" She jumped, water sloshing from her glass. Ian stood in the doorway of his study, still in his work clothes. "You scared me," she said, forcing a laugh. "I thought you'd be at the warehouse until midnight." Santos rescheduled. Customs delays. He moved closer, and she fought the urge to step back. Could he smell Randall's cologne on her? "You look nice for a meeting with auditors. We went for drinks after. You know, to smooth things over." The lie came easily, too easily. They had concerns about some of the offshore accounts. What kind of concerns? Nothing serious, just procedural questions. She moved past him toward the bedroom. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to shower." Ian caught her arm gently. "Rosa, is everything okay? You've seemed distant lately." For a moment, looking into his concerned brown eyes, she almost confessed everything. Almost told him about the suffocating feeling that had been growing for years, about how managing the company's finances had shown her just how easy it would be to disappear, about Randall and the fire he'd rekindled in her. Instead, she kissed Ian's cheek. "Everything's fine, mi amor. Just stressed about quarter end." In the shower, she scrubbed her skin raw, trying to wash away the guilt and Randall's touch, but she couldn't wash away the memory of his words. "You deserve more than a life of pretense." When she finally slipped into bed beside her sleeping husband, Rosa stared at the ceiling, her mind churning. 15 years of marriage stretched behind her like a safe, predictable road. But ahead? Ahead lay Randall and danger and the intoxicating promise of something more. Her phone, hidden in her purse, buzzed with a text she wouldn't read until morning. "Suite 1512 has a beautiful view of the sunrise. Join me Tuesday?" Outside, Miami slept under a blanket of stars, unaware that in a penthouse overlooking the bay, the perfect marriage had developed its first real crack one that would soon split wide open, destroying everything in its path. Bruce Caldwell sat across from Ian at their usual table at Joe's Stone Crab, his weathered face creased with concern. The lunch crowd buzzed around them, tourists and locals alike, cracking into fresh Florida stone crabs, but Ian barely noticed. His attention was fixed on the credit card statement in his hands. $8,000 at Bal Harbor Shops? Ian stared at the number. In one afternoon? Bruce shifted uncomfortably. Could be a business expense. You know Rosa, she's always entertaining clients. With purchases from Chanel, Gucci, and Cartier? Ian's jaw tightened. What client requires a $5,000 handbag? Look, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying there might be an explanation. Bruce signaled the waiter for another beer. Have you asked her about it? Ian folded the statement, tucking it into his jacket. She said it was gifts for the Ramirez account. But Miguel Ramirez is a 70-year-old man who drives a 10-year-old Toyota. His wife shops at Target. The waiter arrived with their order jumbo stone crabs with mustard sauce, but Ian's appetite had vanished. 3 weeks had passed since that first Friday night audit meeting, and Rosa's behavior had grown increasingly erratic. Late nights were becoming routine, always with perfectly reasonable explanations that somehow felt rehearsed. There's something else, Bruce said, lowering his voice. That missing container from Colombia? I did some digging. It was signed out of the port, processed through our system, but never arrived at the warehouse. That's impossible. We have GPS tracking disabled. Bruce cracked a crab claw with perhaps more force than necessary. Someone with system access turned off the tracker 2 hours after pickup. Ian felt a chill despite the humid Miami afternoon. Only 3 people have that level of access. You, me, and Rosa. Bruce met his eyes. Ian, I hate to say this, but have you considered that maybe? No. The word came out sharper than intended. Rosa would never. There has to be another explanation. But even as he defended his wife, doubt gnawed at him. Last Tuesday, he'd come home early with flowers, a surprise for their monthly date night. He'd found Rosa in the bedroom, freshly showered at 3 p.m., claiming she'd gone to the gym. But her gym bag had been in the closet, dry and untouched. Mr. Martinez? A woman's voice interrupted his thoughts. I thought that was you. Ian looked up to find Maria Santos, owner of the high-end boutique Rosa frequented. The middle-aged woman beamed at him, her arms full of shopping bags. Maria, how are you? Wonderful, and please thank your beautiful wife for recommending me to her friend. Such a handsome man, he bought out half my jewelry collection last week. Ian's stomach dropped. Her friend? Yes, the blonde gentleman. Very charming. Rosa brought him in, said he needed something special for his mother's birthday. Maria's smile faltered at Ian's expression. Did I say something wrong? No, just surprised. Rosa didn't mention it? Ian forced a smile. Enjoy your lunch, Maria. After she left, Bruce leaned forward. Ian, don't. Ian threw cash on the table, his movements sharp. I need to go. He drove aimlessly through Miami, his mind racing. Rosa bringing a man to Maria's boutique. Expensive charges on the company card, missing cargo, late nights with convenient excuses. Each piece was damning on its own, but together they painted a picture he couldn't bear to see. His phone rang. Carmen's name on the display. Senor Ian? You need to come home. What's wrong? It's Senora Rosa. She's not herself. Breaking things, crying. I don't know what to do. Ian floored it, reaching the penthouse in record time. He found Rosa in their bedroom, designer clothes strewn across the floor. She stood at the window, mascara streaking her cheeks, clutching a glass of wine. Rosa? Mi amor, what happened? She turned, her eyes wild. Why are you home? You're supposed to be at lunch with Bruce. Carmen called. She was worried. He approached slowly, as if she were a spooked animal. Talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. She laughed, high and brittle. Everything's perfect, isn't it? Our perfect life in our perfect penthouse with our perfect marriage. You're scaring me. Ian reached for her, but she pulled away. What's going on? What's going on? She drained her wine glass, immediately refilling it from the bottle on the dresser. I'm suffocating, Ian, drowning in spreadsheets and shipping manifests in this fucking perfect life we've built. Where is this coming from? This morning you were fine. No! The wine glass shattered against the wall, red liquid streaming down white paint. I haven't been fine in years, but you don't see it because you're too busy with your precious company to notice your wife is dying inside. Ian stood frozen, wine dripping onto imported Italian marble. In 15 years, he'd never seen Rosa like this, unleashed, raw, furious. Is there someone else? The question escaped before he could stop it. Rosa's face went pale, then flushed red. How dare you? The late nights, the shopping sprees, Maria Santos mentioned you brought a man to her store. Get out. Her voice was deadly quiet. Get out of our bedroom. Rosa, get out. Ian retreated to his study, his hands shaking as he poured himself a scotch. Through the door, he could hear Rosa sobbing, Carmen's soft voice trying to comfort her. His phone buzzed a text from Wayne Rodriguez, his racquetball partner from the club. Hey, buddy, weird question. My ex-partner from Miami-Dade PD does private investigation now. You mentioned maybe needing someone discreet? Here's his number if you want it. Ian stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the contact. Hiring a private investigator to follow his own wife, it felt like a betrayal of everything they'd built together. But the image of Rosa's wild eyes, the shattered wine glass, the secrets piling up like stones. He saved the number. That night, Rosa emerged from the bedroom as if nothing had happened. She'd changed into a simple sundress, her face freshly washed, no trace of the afternoon's breakdown. I'm sorry, she said, not meeting his eyes. It's the stress. The auditors found some discrepancies, and I've been trying to fix them without worrying you. What kind of discrepancies? Nothing major, just some categorization errors. I'll handle it. She touched his arm, her fingers cold. I shouldn't have exploded like that. It won't happen again. Ian wanted to press, to demand real answers. Instead, he nodded, playing along with the charade. Maybe you should take a few days off. We could go to the Keys, like we used to. After quarter end. She kissed his cheek, her lips barely grazing his skin. I promise. But as she walked away, Ian noticed something that made his blood run cold. On the back of her neck, partially hidden by her hair, was a bruise in the distinct shape of a thumbprint, a mark he knew he hadn't made. He thought of Wayne's text, of the private investigator's number now saved in his phone. Tomorrow, he told himself. Tomorrow he would make the call. Outside, a storm was building over the Atlantic, dark clouds massing on the horizon. The last of the spring sunshine faded, casting long shadows across their perfect penthouse. In the kitchen, Rosa moved mechanically, preparing dinner as if this were any other night. But Ian knew better. The signs were all there, impossible to ignore. His marriage, his life was built on a foundation that had begun to crack. And like all structures built on unstable ground, it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Carmen caught his eye from the hallway, her weathered face full of sympathy and warning. She'd seen it too, the bruise, the lies, the slow unraveling of Rosa Martinez. Ian raised his scotch in a mock toast to his reflection in the window. Here's to perfect lives, he thought bitterly, and to the moment you realize perfection is just another word for illusion. The Miami night was thick with humidity as Ian sat in his BMW, parked across from the Equinox gym where Rosa claimed to spend her Tuesday evenings. It was 7:43 p.m., and he'd been waiting for over an hour, watching the entrance with growing unease. His wife's Mercedes sat in its usual spot, but something felt wrong. Wayne Rodriguez had been texting him updates from inside the gym. The former cop-turned-private investigator had joined Equinox 3 days ago, establishing a pattern of working out during Rosa's supposed yoga sessions. No sign of her in the yoga studio. Check the entire women's section, she's not here. Ian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd resisted hiring Wayne for 2 weeks after their breakdown, clinging to hope that Rosa's explanation about audit stress was true. But when she'd come home last Thursday with her hair styled differently than when she'd left and reeking of cologne that wasn't his, he'd finally made the call. Another text. Her car's been here since 6:15, but the front desk says she left through the back exit at 6:30. Someone picked her up. Ian's phone rang. Wayne's gravelly voice filled the car. You want me to check the security footage? No, I know where she's going. Ian had done his own investigating, checking their credit card statements, her Uber history when she thought he was asleep. The Four Seasons appeared too often to be coincidence. Meet me at the Four Seasons in 20 minutes. Bring your camera. The drive to the hotel felt like swimming through molasses. Each red light stretched endlessly, giving Ian too much time to think, to remember. Their wedding night at this very hotel. Rosa in her grandmother's mantilla veil, spinning on the dance floor, laughing as he dipped her during their first dance. How had they gotten from there to here? He valeted the car, his hands surprisingly steady as he walked through the lobby. The concierge, Philippe, recognized him from the numerous business dinners he'd hosted here. Mr. Martinez, wonderful to see you. Are you meeting someone? Just having a drink at the bar. Ian forced a smile. Actually, Philippe, I'm expecting a colleague. Blonde man, about 35, probably wearing a suit. Have you seen anyone like that? Philippe's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. I believe there was a gentleman matching that description. He's one of our regular guests. Mr. Blake, if I'm not mistaken. Blake. Ian filed the name away. Regular guest? Yes, sir. He maintains one of our suites. Quite generous with the staff. Philippe leaned closer, lowering his voice. Between us, he's been very good to the hotel. Always pays in cash, never causes problems. Ian slipped Philippe a $100 bill. I appreciate the information. Wayne appeared at his elbow, dressed in tourist clothes that somehow made him invisible, the art of a good investigator. What's the play? We wait. Ian chose a corner table in the bar with a clear view of the elevators. And we watch. They didn't have to wait long. At 8:27, the elevator opened and Rosa emerged, looking radiant in a way that pierced Ian's heart. She wore a black cocktail dress he'd never seen, her hair swept up to reveal diamond earrings also new. She moved through the lobby like a woman floating on air, oblivious to her husband's presence 30 feet away. Fuck. Wayne's camera clicked quietly. I'm sorry, man. But Ian wasn't listening. His attention was fixed on the man who'd stepped out of the elevator behind Rosa. Tall, blonde, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. He placed a possessive hand on Rosa's lower back, guiding her toward the exit. The gesture was intimate, familiar, the hand of a man who knew exactly where he was allowed to touch. "You want me to follow them?" Wayne asked. "No." Ian's voice sounded strange to his own ears, hollow and distant. "I've seen enough." But he hadn't. As Rosa and her lover waited for their car, the man leaned down to whisper in her ear. Rosa threw her head back, really laughing in a way Ian hadn't seen in months. The man caught her chin, tilting her face up, and kissed her deeply, passionately, right there under the hotel's grand entrance. Ian watched his wife melt into another man's arms and felt something inside him die. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, like a candle being snuffed out. 15 years of marriage, reduced to this moment, him hidden in shadows while she glowed in another man's light. "Ian!" Wayne's hand gripped his shoulder. "Don't do anything stupid." But Ian wasn't planning anything stupid. As Rosa and Blake climbed into a white Bentley, Ian felt an odd calm descend over him. The uncertainty was over. The questions answered. His wife was having an affair with a man named Blake who kept a suite at the Four Seasons and drove a car worth more than most people's houses. His phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. "Yoga running late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." The casual cruelty of it, the easy lie followed by empty endearment, almost made him laugh. He screenshot the message, adding it to the growing file of evidence. "What now?" Wayne asked as they walked back to their cars. "Now I plan." Ian's mind was already working, the businessman in him taking over. "I need you to find out everything about this Blake. Who he is, where he's from, what he does. Everything. And Rosa? Keep following her. Document everything. Times, dates, locations." Ian paused at his car. "How long do you think this has been going on?" Wayne considered. Based on how comfortable they looked, the suite at the hotel, at least 2 months, maybe 3. 3 months. While Ian had been focused on growing their business, his wife had been building a secret life. He thought of all the nights she'd worked late, all the weekend yoga sessions, all the client dinners that never appeared on any expense reports. "There's something else," Wayne said reluctantly. "That bruise on her neck you mentioned, the thumbprint? A man doesn't mark a woman like that unless things have gotten intense." Ian nodded slowly. Physical passion, something that had faded from their marriage so gradually he hadn't noticed its absence until now. When was the last time Rosa had looked at him the way she'd looked at Blake? When was the last time they'd kissed like that? Driving home, Ian felt like a ghost haunting his own life. The penthouse was dark when he arrived, Carmen long gone for the evening. He poured himself a scotch and stood at the window, looking out at the city lights reflected in Biscayne Bay. His phone rang. Valerie Chen's name appeared on the screen. "Ian? I'm sorry to call so late, but I was reviewing some contracts and noticed something odd. Several property transfers have been initiated on your commercial holdings. Did you authorize Rosa to—" "Valerie." Ian cut her off. "I need to see you first thing tomorrow, and I need you to recommend the best divorce attorney you know." Silence on the other end. Then, softly, "Oh, Ian, I'm so sorry. Can you do one more thing for me? Quietly freeze any transfers or major financial moves on our accounts. Use whatever legal mechanism you need." "Consider it done. Ian, are you okay?" He almost laughed. Okay? He'd just watched his wife kiss another man with more passion than she'd shown him in years. He'd discovered their life together was an elaborate facade. Was he okay? "I will be," he said finally. "Once I figure out exactly what Rosa and her boyfriend are planning." Because this wasn't just about infidelity, Ian was sure of that now. The missing container, the property transfers, the secret meetings. Rosa wasn't just having an affair. She was orchestrating something bigger. And Ian Martinez, the dock worker who'd built an empire from nothing, would be damned if he'd let anyone, even the woman he'd loved for 15 years, destroy what he'd created. The storm that had threatened earlier finally broke, rain lashing against the windows. Somewhere in Miami, His wife was in another man's bed, probably laughing about her oblivious husband. Let her laugh, Ian thought, raising his glass to the storm. She'd learned soon enough that the quiet ones, the ones who built their success through patience and careful planning, were the most dangerous when crossed. The ghost of his marriage might be haunting this penthouse, but Ian Martinez was very much alive, and he was ready for war. Wayne Rodriguez had seen a lot during his 20 years with Miami-Dade PD, but the level of deception he was uncovering in the Martinez case impressed even him. He sat in his cluttered home office in Coral Gables, 3 computer monitors displaying bank records, shipping manifests, and surveillance footage. Empty coffee cups and Cuban sandwich wrappers littered his desk, the debris of a 72-hour deep dive into Rosa Martinez's secret life. Jesus Christ, he muttered, screenshotting another suspicious transaction. Ladies running a whole parallel universe. The door opened and Ian walked in, looking like he'd aged 5 years in the past week. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, his usually perfect hair disheveled. Wayne had told him to stay away, to let him work, but Ian couldn't help himself. The need to know was eating him alive. "Tell me you found something," Ian said, collapsing into the cracked leather chair across from Wayne's desk. "Found something?" Wayne laughed bitterly. "Brother, your wife makes Bernie Madoff look like an amateur. Look at this." He swiveled the center monitor toward Ian. In the past 6 months, Rosa has moved over $2.5 million through 17 different shell companies, each transaction just under the federal reporting limit. She's got accounts in the Caymans, Switzerland, even a small bank in Macau. Ian stared at the screen, his face pale. That's impossible. I would have noticed. Would you?" Wayne pulled up another screen. "She's been using your company's legitimate international transfers to hide her movements. A little extra here, a smaller payment there. Unless someone was specifically looking for it, it would blend right in with normal business." "The missing containers?" "Sold." Wayne clicked through shipping records. 3 containers total, all from Colombia. She reported them as lost or damaged, collected the insurance, but actually diverted them to a warehouse in Hialeah, sold the contents, mostly electronics and textiles, for cash. Ian's hands clenched into fists. "Who's buying?" "That's where it gets interesting." Wayne opened a folder of surveillance photos. "Remember our friend Mr. Blake? Randall Blake, according to the hotel registry? Well, that's not his real name." The photos showed Blake meeting with various men at different locations: parking garages, strip clubs, a yacht in Miami Beach Marina. Hard-looking men with neck tattoos and expensive clothes. His real name is Raymond Castellano. He's connected to the Torino crime family out of New York. Not made, but definitely affiliated. Runs money laundering operations throughout South Florida. Ian felt the room spin. Rosa's involved with organized crime? Up to her pretty little neck. Wayne's expression was grim. "But here's the weird part, I don't think she knows who he really is. In all my surveillance, she seems to think he's some hotshot investor, the lovesick mistress, not the criminal mastermind. So he's using her. They're using each other. She gets her excitement and escape plan. He gets access to your company's international shipping network." Wayne pulled up more files. "I installed that camera in her office like you asked. Want to see what your CFO does when she thinks nobody's watching?" The footage was damning. Rosa at her desk, transferring funds with practiced ease. Phone calls in Spanish to unnamed parties, discussing account numbers and transfer dates. Most disturbing was a conversation from yesterday, Rosa's voice clear through the hidden microphone. "No, he doesn't suspect anything. Ian's too trusting for his own good. Yes, the Ramirez account is ready. $500,000 like we discussed. Don't worry about Blake, I have him handled. Men are so easy to manipulate when you give them what they want." Ian stood abruptly, knocking over his chair. "I need air." They stepped onto Wayne's small balcony, the humid Miami night pressing against them like a wet blanket. Below, the normal sounds of suburban life, kids playing, couples walking dogs, the distant sound of a Dolphins game on someone's TV. Normal life happening while Ian's world imploded. "There's more," Wayne said quietly. "I tracked Blake Castellano, whatever you want to call him. He's been asking questions about your business. Specifically, about your roots from Colombia." You think he's planning something? I think your wife opened a door she can't close. These people, once they get their hooks in..." Wayne shook his head. "I've seen it before. Starts with a little money laundering, ends with bodies in the Everglades." Ian gripped the balcony railing, his knuckles white. "What about the properties Valerie mentioned?" "Being transferred to a holding company in Rosa's maiden name. Your oceanfront warehouse, 2 rental properties in Aventura, even trying to get at the penthouse." Wayne lit a cigarette, ignoring Ian's disapproving look. "She's systematically stripping your assets while building her own empire. With my money. Technically marital assets. Florida's an equitable distribution state. She's probably figuring she'll get half anyway, might as well take it all." They stood in silence, watching a plane's lights blink across the dark sky. Finally, Ian spoke. "Show me the rest." Back inside, Wayne pulled up the most damaging footage yet. Tuesday night, after Ian had seen them at the Four Seasons. The camera in Rosa's office showed her and Blake in a passionate embrace, clothes disheveled, her desk cleared with a violent sweep of his arm. "Turn it off," Ian said hoarsely, but Wayne kept it running. After their encounter, Blake had pulled out a bag of white powder, cutting lines on Rosa's antique mirror. She'd hesitated at first, then joined him, her technique suggesting this wasn't her first time. "Cocaine," Wayne said unnecessarily. "Your wife's not just stealing and cheating. She's using." Ian watched his wife, this stranger wearing Rosa's face, laugh as she wiped powder from her nose. Watched Blake pull her onto his lap, his hands possessive, proprietary. Watched her throw her head back in abandon, wedding ring catching the light as she ran her fingers through his hair. "How long has the camera been in there?" 5 days. I've got about 30 hours of footage, multiple visits from Blake, 3 other men I'm still trying to ID, and enough financial crimes to put her away for 20 years. "I don't want her in prison," Ian said quietly. "I just want out, and I want what's mine." Wayne studied him. "You sure about that? Woman's stolen millions, is banging a connected guy, and is setting you up to take the fall for God knows what. You don't want revenge?" Ian thought about it. Thought about Rosa at 23, earnest and determined, refusing his help until he'd convinced her it was an investment in their future. Thought about their wedding day, her tears of joy as they exchanged vows. Thought about building their company together, late nights going over spreadsheets, celebrating each milestone with champagne and lovemaking. "I want justice," he said finally. "There's a difference." "All right." Wayne started organizing files. "Here's what we do. First, you need to act normal. Don't let on that you know anything. Can you do that?" "I've been doing it for a week." "Good. Keep it up. Meanwhile, I'll keep documenting everything. We build an airtight case. When the time comes, she won't know what hit her." Ian's phone buzzed. Rosa texting from her yoga class that didn't exist. "Running late again. These instructors are killing me. Don't wait up. Love you." He showed Wayne the message. "She's getting careless. Too many late nights." "Or she wants to get caught," Wayne suggested. "Some people, they can't stand the guilt. They push boundaries until someone stops them." "Rosa doesn't feel guilt," Ian said, thinking of the woman snorting cocaine off her grandmother's mirror. "Not anymore." As he drove home through empty streets, Ian thought about the bomb sitting in Wayne's computers, enough evidence to destroy Rosa, publicly and professionally, but also enough to destroy the company they'd built, to taint every legitimate deal with the stench of crime. His phone rang. Bruce Caldwell. "Ian, where the hell are you? I'm at the warehouse. We've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "DEA kind of problem. They're here with a warrant. Something about irregular shipments from Colombia." Ian's blood froze. "I'm on my way." He called Wayne as he drove. "DEA's at my warehouse." "Shit. Okay, don't panic. You're clean, right? Everything Rosa did was without your knowledge?" "Yes, but then you cooperate fully. Be the shocked husband. Let them find what they find." This might actually help us. But as Ian pulled up to see federal agents swarming his warehouse, his life's work being dissected by strangers, he couldn't shake the feeling that Rosa's web was about to entangle them all. In the distance, thunder rumbled over the Atlantic, another storm coming. Ian stood in the rain, watching agents carry out boxes of records, and wondered if anything would be left standing when it passed. Inside the warehouse, a young agent held up an evidence bag. White powder residue from a container that wasn't supposed to exist. The war he'd prepared for had just become a battle for survival. Ian Martinez had become a ghost in his own home, a shadow moving through rooms that no longer felt like his. For 3 days after the DEA raid, he'd perfected the art of deception, mirroring Rosa's false smiles at breakfast, kissing her cheek when she left for her fictional yoga classes, lying beside her at night while she slept the untroubled sleep of the shameless. Now, on a humid Thursday morning, he prepared for his greatest performance yet. Texas? Rosa paused in applying her lipstick, meeting his eyes in the bathroom mirror. Why do you need to go to Texas? Damage control. Ian knotted his tie with steady hands, though inside he was vibrating with anticipation. After the DEA raid, the Houston partners are nervous. Bruce thinks if I meet with them personally, we can salvage the contracts. She turned, studying him with those dark eyes that had once made him weak. How long? 3 days, 4 at most. He pulled her close, playing the devoted husband one more time. Will you be okay here alone? Of course. Her smile was bright, fake. Carmen will keep me company, and I have those yoga classes. Yoga classes. The lie rolled off her tongue like honey. Ian wondered if she even remembered what the truth tasted like anymore. An hour later, he stood at the departure gate, watching planes taxi on the scorching tarmac. When the flight to Houston was called, he didn't board. Instead, he walked calmly to the rental car area, where Wayne had reserved a vehicle under an alias. You sure about this? Wayne asked over the phone as Ian drove back toward Miami. She finds out you're not in Texas. She won't. Ian had sent Bruce to Houston with specific instructions: check into the hotel under Ian's name, use his corporate card for meals, make his presence known. As far as anyone knows, I'm in meetings all day. He parked the rental in a garage in Coral Gables and took an Uber to Wayne's office. For the next 6 hours, they monitored Rosa's movements through the cameras Wayne had installed. She'd gone to the office as usual, the picture of a devoted CFO cleaning up after the DEA mess. At 2 p.m., everything changed. Blake Castellano arrived, slipping into her office like he owned it. Within minutes, they were in each other's arms, but this wasn't their usual passionate encounter. They were talking urgently, Rosa gesturing wildly as Blake paced. Turn up the audio, Ian commanded. Rosa's voice filled the room. Told you this would happen. The DEA doesn't just randomly show up. Calm down. Blake's tone was ice. They found nothing. A little residue that could have come from anywhere. A little residue? Rosa laughed hysterically. From the containers I reported as lost? Ian's not stupid. He's going to connect the dots. Then maybe it's time we discussed our timeline. What do you mean? Blake pulled Rosa onto his lap, his hands roaming possessively. I mean, darling, that your usefulness might be reaching its expiration date unless... Unless what? Unless we accelerate our plans. Your husband's life insurance policy, how much was it again? Ian's blood turned to ice. Beside him, Wayne cursed softly. $5 million, Rosa said quietly. But Raymond... His voice hardened. My name is Raymond, and $5 million would go a long way toward making our problems disappear. You're talking about murder. I'm talking about freedom. Your freedom. Our freedom. Blake's hand wrapped around Rosa's throat, not choking but controlling. You think you can just walk away from this? From me? From the family? What family? You said you were an investor. The slap echoed through the speakers. Rosa's head snapped back, her hand flying to her cheek. Don't play dumb with me, Puda. You knew exactly what you were getting into. The money, the drugs, the connections, you wanted it all. Blake stood, dumping her from his lap. Now you're going to deliver. I won't kill him. Rosa's voice was small, defeated. Ian doesn't deserve you, Blake snarled. But he's got you, and everything you've built together. Unless you'd prefer I handle things my way? No. Rosa grabbed his arm. Please, Raymond, give me time. I'll get the money another way. You have 2 weeks. Either you handle your husband problem or I will. And trust me, my way won't be as gentle as whatever pills you slip into his evening brandy. After Blake left, Rosa collapsed at her desk, sobbing. Ian watched his wife fall apart and felt nothing. The woman crying on screen wasn't the Rosa he'd married. That woman had died somewhere between the first lie and the first line of cocaine. Holy shit, Wayne breathed. They're planning to kill you. Let them try. Ian's voice was steel. Pull up the other footage. I want to see everything from this week. They spent the next hours reviewing tape. Rosa meeting with unknown men, exchanging packages. Rosa on the phone with banks in Switzerland, moving money with criminal efficiency. Rosa forging Ian's signature on document after document, her hands steady and practiced. Then Wayne found something that made them both freeze. Is that? Ian leaned closer to the screen. The footage was from Tuesday night after hours. Rosa wasn't alone in the office. A woman was with her tall, blonde, expensively dressed. They were looking at documents spread across Rosa's desk. The blonde pointed at something, and Rosa nodded, making notes. Can you enhance it? Wayne zoomed in, sharpening the image. The blonde turned, her profile clear in the camera's view. Fuck me, Wayne said. That's Patricia Williams. Who? Captain Patricia Williams, DEA. Wayne's fingers flew over the keyboard, pulling up the woman's official photo. It was a match. Your wife is meeting with a DEA captain, the same DEA that raided your warehouse. Ian's mind raced. She's informing? Or being investigated? Or... Wayne stopped, his face going pale. Oh shit, what if Blake isn't who we think he is? What do you mean? What if Raymond Castellano, connected guy from New York, is actually... Randall Blake, undercover DEA. Ian finished, the pieces clicking into place. He's not investigating Rosa, he's investigating me, using her to get access to my company. But the drugs, the money laundering, all part of building a case, make me look like a kingpin while Rosa plays the innocent wife forced to comply. Ian laughed bitterly. She's not planning to kill me. She's planning to bury me in federal prison while she walks away with everything. They sat in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of Rosa's betrayal. It wasn't just adultery or theft. It was a coordinated effort to destroy him completely. Ian's phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. Missing you already. Houston better appreciate what I'm lending them. What do you want to do? Wayne asked quietly. Ian stood, his decision made. We're going to beat them at their own game. If the DEA wants to play dirty, let's show them what real dirt looks like. Ian, get me everything on Captain Patricia Williams, every case she's worked, every informant she's burned, and get me a meeting with the best criminal defense attorney in Miami. If they want a war, they've got one. As he prepared to leave, Wayne grabbed his arm. You know this ends with someone in prison, right? Maybe multiple someones. I know. Ian's eyes were cold. But it won't be me. Driving back to the rental car, Ian thought about the woman he'd be going home to tonight. The woman who'd shared his bed while planning his destruction. Who'd kissed him goodbye this morning knowing she was counting down to his arrest or death. His phone rang. Rosa. Hi, mi amor. How was the flight? Fine. The lie came easily now. Just checked into the hotel. Good. I'm making your favorite for dinner ropa vieja. For when you get back. Sounds wonderful. Ian? Her voice softened. I love you. Whatever happens, remember that I love you. I know, he said, meaning it. She did love him, in her broken way. The same way a spider might love the fly caught in its web, appreciating its purpose even as it drained it dry. I love you too, Rosa. See you soon. He hung up and dialed another number. Bruce? Yeah, I'm here. Listen carefully. I need you to set up a meeting with Miguel Ramirez. The real one, not whatever phantom Rosa's been billing. Tell him it's about his account discrepancies. And Bruce, don't mention this to anyone, especially not Rosa. The ghost of Ian Martinez was done haunting his old life. Now it was time for resurrection and retribution. Thunder rolled across the Miami sky as he drove toward the airport to establish his alibi. In her office, Rosa was probably planning his downfall with her DEA handlers. At home, Carmen was preparing his favorite meal, unaware it might be his last in that penthouse. But Ian Martinez had survived the docks of Miami, built an empire from nothing, and loved a woman who'd proven to be a viper. He'd survive this too. And when the dust settled, they'd all learn what happened when you betrayed a man who'd spent his life turning disadvantages into opportunities. The war was no longer coming. It was here. Wayne Rodriguez sat in his beat-up Camry outside a Starbucks in Aventura, watching Randall Blake order his usual venti blonde roast, black. After a week of surveillance, Wayne knew Blake's routines better than his own. Morning coffee here, gym at 10, lunch at expensive restaurants with questionable company, afternoons at the Four Seasons with Rosa. But today was different. Today, Blake had a tale of his own. Wayne had spotted them immediately, two men in a bland sedan, textbook federal surveillance positioning. As Blake left the coffee shop, they followed at a professional distance. Wayne fell in behind both parties, his cop instincts screaming that something was about to break. His phone buzzed. Ian, texting from Houston, where he was supposedly in meetings. Any movement? Blake's being followed. Not by me. Looks federal. Stay on them. The strange convoy wound through Miami traffic, Blake in his white Bentley, the feds in their sedan, Wayne bringing up the rear in his forgettable Camry. They ended up at a marina in Key Biscayne, where Blake parked and walked toward the docks with confident strides. Wayne watched the federal agents exit their vehicle. One spoke into his wrist, definitely feds, probably DEA given the connection. They followed Blake at a distance as he boarded a yacht named Second Chance. Interesting boat name for a guy planning a frame job, Wayne muttered, snapping photos with his telephoto lens. 20 minutes passed. Then Blake emerged from the yacht with two other men, one Hispanic with Miami gang tattoos visible on his neck, the other an older white guy in an expensive suit who looked like management. They talked for several minutes, Blake gesturing animatedly. That's when Wayne saw something that made his blood run cold. As Blake shook hands with the suited man, he made a subtle hand gesture, thumb and forefinger forming a circle, other fingers extended. Wayne had seen that signal before, during his days working organized crime. It was a federal agent's distress signal. Holy shit, Wayne breathed, frantically taking photos. Blake wasn't investigating Ian. He was undercover, possibly in too deep, signaling for extraction. The meeting broke up, Blake returning to his Bentley. But instead of following him, the federal agents approached the yacht. 10 minutes later, they emerged with Box's evidence collection. Wayne's phone rang. Ian. You need to see this footage, Wayne said without preamble. Blake just flashed a federal distress signal. I think he's undercover and in trouble. What kind of trouble? The kind where the line between cop and criminal gets real blurry. I'm heading back to the office. Meet me there in an hour. But first, Wayne had one more stop to make. He'd been tracking all the players in this drama, including some Ian didn't know about. 20 minutes later, he sat in his car outside a modest apartment building in Kendall, watching DEA Captain Patricia Williams water her plants on her third-floor balcony. Wayne had done his homework on Williams, 15-year veteran, spotless record, known for long-term undercover operations that took down major trafficking networks. But something about her involvement bothered him. Why was she meeting secretly with Rosa? Why hadn't Ian been arrested yet if they had evidence? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll bury yourself too. Wayne's hand instinctively went to his concealed carry. Someone knew he was investigating. Someone was watching him watch them. The game just got more dangerous. Back at his office, Wayne spread out everything he'd gathered over 2 weeks. Photos, financial records, surveillance footage, background checks. Ian arrived looking haggard, the stress of maintaining his cover in Houston while his world imploded taking its toll. Tell me you have good news, Ian said. I have complicated news. Wayne pulled up the yacht photos. Blake, or whatever his real name is definitely law enforcement, but I don't think this operation is what we thought. He laid out his theory. Blake had been investigating the Torino crime family's expansion into South Florida. He'd gotten close to their money laundering operations, using his cover as a wealthy investor. Then he'd met Rosa. Your wife was supposed to be an asset, Wayne explained. Access to legitimate shipping channels for the investigation. But somewhere along the line, things went sideways. He fell for her, Ian said flatly. Or she turned him, or both. Wayne pulled up the financial records. Look at this. The money Rosa's been moving? It matches seizures from Torino operations up north. I think Blake's been feeding her inside information, helping her steal from the criminals he's investigating. So he's a dirty cop. Maybe. Or maybe he's so deep undercover he's lost track of which side he's on. Wayne had seen it before. Good cops who stayed under too long, got too comfortable with the criminal lifestyle. Either way, your wife is playing a dangerous game with dangerous people. What about Williams? How does she fit in? Wayne pulled up the footage of Williams and Rosa meeting. Best guess? She's Blake's handler, trying to salvage an operation that's gone completely off the rails. Rosa might be informing for her, or Williams might be trying to flip her. Ian studied the footage, his jaw tight. So my wife is sleeping with an undercover federal agent while helping him steal from the mob and possibly informing to his handler, all while setting me up to take the fall for everything. That's the Cliff's Notes version, yeah. Jesus Christ. Ian slumped in his chair. How do we prove any of this? Wayne smiled grimly. Funny you should ask. He produced a flash drive. Remember that camera in Rosa's office? It picked up something interesting yesterday. The footage showed Rosa on the phone, but this time she was speaking English, not Spanish. Her side of the conversation was damning. Told you he's in Texas until Sunday. Yes, I have access to all the accounts. No, Blake doesn't know about our arrangement. I understand the immunity deal only covers pre-existing crimes. Yes, I'll testify about the shipping routes. She's definitely informing, Wayne said. But listen to this next part. Rosa's voice continued. What about Randall? You promised he wouldn't be charged. I don't care if he's compromised, he loves me. No, you listen to me, Captain. I've given you everything. The Torino connections, the money trails, even my husband's head on a platter. You owe me this. Fine. But if anything happens to Randall, I'll forget everything I know when I'm on that witness stand. Ian's face was stone. She's negotiating immunity for herself and Blake by giving them me. The ultimate betrayal. Wayne ejected the drive, handing it to Ian. Question is, what do you do with this? We turn the tables, Ian said quietly. If Rosa wants to play federal witness, let's give her something to witness. Ian, call your contact at the FBI, the one who owes you favors. Ian's eyes were cold. Tell him DEA has a compromised agent who's gone native with the Torino family. Tell him there's a woman who can prove it all, Rosa Martinez, who's been documenting everything because she thought she was building a case against her husband. Wayne whistled low. You want to flip the script. Make her the target instead of the witness. She made her choice when she got in bed with Blake, literally and figuratively. Ian stood. I'm done being the victim in her story. Time to write my own ending. As Ian left, Wayne made the calls that would set everything in motion. The FBI loved jurisdiction disputes with DEA, especially when corruption was involved. By morning, a whole new investigation would be opening, one that Rosa and Blake hadn't seen coming. Outside, Miami pulsed with its usual energy, oblivious to the drama playing out in its shadows. Tourists partied on South Beach, families enjoyed dinner in Coral Gables, lovers met in secret at the Four Seasons. But for 5 people, Ian, Rosa, Blake, Williams, and Wayne, the city had become a chessboard. Every move calculated, every relationship a potential weapon. Wayne looked at the photo of Blake flashing his distress signal. The man was drowning, pulled under by currents he couldn't control. Rosa was drowning too, though she didn't know it yet. Even Williams, trying to salvage her operation, was about to find herself in over her head. Only Ian was learning to swim in these treacherous waters. The betrayed husband had become something far more dangerous, a man with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Wayne's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. You were warned. Now you'll see what happens to those who interfere. He looked out his window, checking for surveillance, his hand again finding his weapon. The threat didn't scare him. He'd faced worse during his cop days. But it confirmed what he'd suspected. This was about to get bloody. The Miami FBI field office hummed with the particular energy that came with a major case breaking open. Special Agent Diane Vargas sat across from Wayne Rodriguez in a secure interview room, her sharp eyes taking in every detail as she reviewed the evidence he'd provided. This is solid, she said finally, closing the folder. A DEA agent gone rogue, helping his mistress steal from both criminals and her husband's legitimate business. It's a prosecutor's wet dream. Wayne leaned back in his chair. So you'll take the case? We'll do more than that. If Captain Williams is running an off-books operation that's compromised, that's a matter for our public corruption unit. Vargas smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. DEA's been stepping on our toes for years. Time to return the favor. Meanwhile, 50 miles north in a Jupiter safe house, Captain Patricia Williams paced while Randall Blake detective Marcus Stone, according to his real badge, sat slumped on a dingy couch. 3 years, Williams said, her voice tight with fury. 3 years building this case, getting you inside the Torino organization, and you throw it all away for what? A piece of ass? It's not like that, Stone protested. Rosa's different. She understands me. She's a criminal. Williams slammed her hand on the table. She's stolen millions, is connected to a massive money laundering operation, and you're protecting her? Because you want to throw her to the wolves. Make her testify against Ian when he's innocent. Innocent? Williams laughed bitterly. Nobody in this mess is innocent. Not Martinez, not his wife, and certainly not you. You've been feeding her information, helping her steal from our targets. You think Internal Affairs won't crucify you for this? Stone stood, running his hands through his blonde hair. Then let them. I'm done. Done being Randall Blake, done pretending to be a scumbag, done watching Rosa cry because she's terrified of what we've gotten her into. What you've gotten her into? Williams's voice went deadly quiet. Let me remind you of something, Detective. Rosa Martinez approached you. She saw Mark wealthy, connected, morally flexible. She played you like a violin, and you're so dick-matched you can't see it. You're wrong. Am I? Then explain this. Williams threw a folder on the coffee table. Photos spilled out Rosa with other men, time-stamps showing dates when Stone thought she was alone. Your girlfriend's been busy. 3 other lovers besides you, all wealthy, all with connections she could exploit. Stone stared at the photos, his face crumbling. No, this is fake. You're trying to check the metadata yourself. She's been playing everyone, including you. Williams softened slightly. Marcus, I know you caught feelings. It happens in deep cover. But this woman is poison. She'll destroy you along with everyone else. Back in Miami, Ian sat in his home office at 2 a.m., unable to sleep. The penthouse felt like a mausoleum, every room holding ghosts of his marriage. He'd returned from Houston that evening, playing the tired businessman while Rosa fussed over him with false concern. You look exhausted, mi amor, she'd said, her hands on his shoulders. Let me draw you a bath. He'd let her, watching her move through their bedroom with the grace of a woman who had no idea her world was about to implode. Or did she? Sometimes he caught her looking at him with an expression he couldn't read. Guilt? Calculation? Fear? His secure phone, the one Wayne had given him, buzzed. A text from Vargas. Operation Washout is a go. We move Monday morning. Be ready. Monday. 3 days to maintain his facade, to sleep beside a woman planning his destruction, to pretend his heart wasn't already ashes. Ian poured himself a scotch, staring out at the glittering Miami skyline. A sound made him turn. Rosa stood in the doorway, silk nightgown clinging to her curves, backlit like an angel. Or a devil. Can't sleep? She asked softly. Just thinking about everything. He gestured to his desk, covered with legitimate papers. The DEA raid spooked our partners. Going to take time to rebuild trust. She moved into the room, perching on his desk. Maybe it's a sign. What do you mean? Maybe it's time to get out. Her fingers traced patterns on the wood. Sell the company, take the money, disappear somewhere tropical. Just you and me. Ian's pulse quickened. Was she testing him? Or was this her exit strategy, convince him to liquidate everything, then vanish with the cash? That's a big decision, he said carefully. I know, but think about it. She leaned forward, her perfume enveloping him. We could start over. No stress, no DEA, no complications. Just us, like it used to be. For a moment, looking into her dark eyes, Ian almost believed she meant it. Almost believed they could rewind time, erase the betrayals, find their way back to that young couple who'd fallen in love over accounting textbooks and Cuban coffee. Then he remembered the surveillance footage. Rosa snorting cocaine off her desk. Rosa in Blake's arms. Rosa on the phone, trading her husband's freedom for immunity. "We'll talk about it," he said, the lie bitter on his tongue. "After things calm down." She kissed him then, soft and sweet, tasting of wine and regret. "I love you, Ian. Whatever happens, remember that." The same words she'd used on the phone. Ian wondered if she had a script, lines she rehearsed for the role of devoted wife. He kissed her back, playing his own part, even as his skin crawled with the wrongness of it. After she went to bed, Ian returned to his vigil at the window. Somewhere in Miami, federal agents were preparing warrants. Wayne was probably reviewing more surveillance footage. Blake Stone, whatever his name was likely drowning in his own deceptions. And Rosa? Rosa was sleeping peacefully, dreaming of tropical escapes funded by blood money. Ian raised his glass to his reflection. "Whatever happens," he echoed, "remember that I loved you too, before you killed us both." The storm that had threatened all week finally broke, rain lashing against the windows. Lightning illuminated the bay in stark, violent flashes, nature's fury, matching the tempest about to engulf them all. Monday morning couldn't come fast enough. But first, Ian had to survive the weekend. 3 more days of pretending, of sleeping next to his own personal Judas, of maintaining the illusion that he didn't know about the 30 pieces of silver she'd already collected. His phone buzzed again. "Wayne. Movement at the Four Seasons. Blake just went up to the suite. Rosa's car spotted in the garage." So much for the devoted wife routine. Ian closed his eyes. Decision made. "Let her go," he texted back. "Give her all the rope she needs." Because come Monday, Rosa Martinez would learn what happened when you hunted a man in his own territory. The predator was about to become prey, and Ian would be watching when the trap finally snapped shut. Outside, Miami burned electric under the storm, a city of secrets and shadows where love and betrayal danced hand in hand, where fortunes rose and fell with the tide, where sometimes the only way to survive was to become the monster others had created. Ian Martinez was ready for his transformation. The only question was, who else would he take down with him when he fell? The Coral Gables Starbucks was nearly empty at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Captain Patricia Williams sat in the corner booth, her DEA badge concealed beneath a University of Miami windbreaker, nursing black coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago. She'd chosen this location carefully far from the usual federal haunts, with multiple exits and clear sightlines to the parking lot. Ian Martinez entered exactly on time, his appearance startling her. The successful businessman from the surveillance photos had been replaced by a man running on fury and caffeine. His clothes were wrinkled, his jaw shadowed with stubble, but his eyes burned with dangerous clarity. "Mr. Martinez." She gestured to the seat across from her. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. Cut the pleasantries." Ian's voice was granite. "I know who you are, Captain Williams. I know you've been meeting with my wife, and I know your undercover detective has gone native." Williams's poker face slipped for just a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about." Ian placed a tablet on the table, swiping through surveillance footage. Rosa and Williams at Rosa's office. Blake Stone receiving cash from Rosa. The damning phone conversations about immunity deals and setting Ian up as the fall guy. "Your operation is blown," Ian said quietly. "Your detective is compromised. My wife is playing all of you, and I'm about to be framed for crimes I didn't commit. So let's skip the denials and get to the part where we help each other." Williams studied him for a long moment. This wasn't the reaction she'd expected from a cornered civilian. "What makes you think I need your help?" "Because in about 6 hours, FBI Special Agent Diane Vargas is going to receive a package detailing your off-books operation, your detective's relationship with a criminal suspect, and evidence that you've been running an unauthorized investigation that's resulted in millions in stolen funds." Ian leaned back. "Unless we come to an understanding first." "Are you threatening a federal officer?" "I'm offering you a lifeline." Ian's smile was sharp. "Your detective Stone, isn't it? Is in love with my wife. She's got him so twisted he can't tell up from down anymore. You've lost control of your asset and your operation. I'm guessing internal affairs would have a field day with this. Williams's jaw tightened. Everything he said was true. Marcus Stone had stopped checking in regularly 3 weeks ago. His reports had become vague, defensive. She'd seen this before, deep-cover agents who forgot which side they were on, but never this fast, never this completely. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "The truth. All of it. What's Stone's real mission? How long has he been undercover? What does Rosa know?" Williams glanced around the empty coffee shop, weighing her options. Protocol said to deny everything, walk away, let the lawyers sort it out. But protocol had already failed spectacularly. 3 years ago, she began, we identified a new player in the South Florida drug trade. Someone was using legitimate import businesses to move product from Colombia. Very sophisticated, very careful. We couldn't get anyone inside until Marcus came up with Randall Blake, wealthy investor with flexible morals, looking for opportunities. And he targeted my company? No. William's laugh was bitter. He was working 3 other leads when he met your wife at a charity function. She approached him, Mr. Martinez. Flirted, suggested they could do business together. Marcus thought he'd hit the jackpot, direct access to what we assumed was a drug smuggling operation. Ian's hands clenched. My company has never smuggled drugs. We know that now, but your wife was very convincing. She played the role of the unhappy spouse involved in her husband's criminal enterprise, slowly feeding Marcus information about shipments, routes, contacts. Williams rubbed her temples. Except the information was fabricated. She was creating a paper trail that made you look guilty while she stole from everyone you, the criminals Marcus was actually investigating, even the DEA's operational funds. And Stone believed her? She's good, Mr. Martinez. Very good. She didn't just seduce his body, she seduced his sense of justice, made him believe he was saving her from a monster. Williams met his eyes. Made him believe you were the monster. The morning sun was starting to stream through the windows, painting golden stripes across their table. Outside, early joggers passed by, oblivious to the conspiracy being unraveled over cold coffee. Where is Stone now? Ian asked. I don't know. He's gone dark. Missed his last 2 check-ins. Williams pulled out her phone, showing him a text. Need more time. Close to breakthrough. Trust me. That was 5 days ago. Since then, nothing. Ian processed this information. He's planning something with Rosa. In the surveillance footage from yesterday, she mentioned Monday morning, said everything would be over by then. Williams went pale. Monday is when we're supposed to arrest you. Stone convinced me to wait until after the weekend, said he'd have ironclad evidence. She stood abruptly. We need to find him, now. I know where he'll be. Ian stood as well. Rosa has a meeting scheduled at the warehouse at 8 a.m. Company emergency protocols after the DEA raid. She insisted all senior staff attend. It's a setup, obviously. But it's also an opportunity. Ian's smile was predatory. How would you like to catch your rogue agent in the act, and maybe salvage something from this disaster? Williams considered the options. Her career was hanging by a thread. 3 years of investigation corrupted by one detective's weakness and one woman's manipulation. But if she could turn this around, catch Stone dirty, and expose the real criminal enterprise. What did you have in mind? First, we need backup. Real backup, not potentially compromised DEA agents. Ian pulled out a business card. Special Agent Vargas already has the FBI primed. They're very interested in public corruption cases. You want me to invite the FBI to arrest my own detective? I want you to do your job, Ian said bluntly. The question is whether you do it as the captain who caught a corrupt agent or the captain who let him run wild. Williams's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your boy is in trouble. 4 Seasons, Suite 1512. Better hurry. She showed Ian the message. Recognize the number? No, but I know the suite. His face darkened. That's where Rosa meets him. They took Williams's unmarked sedan, racing through empty Sunday morning streets. The valet at the 4 Seasons recognized Williams from her previous visits, waving them through without question. In the elevator, She checked her service weapon while Ian fought to control his breathing. If he's hurt her, Ian started. Then he's ended his career and started a prison sentence, Williams finished. Marcus Stone is many things, but he's not violent. If someone's hurt, it won't be your wife. The elevator dinged at the 15th floor. The hallway was silent, morning light streaming through windows at either end. They approached suite 1512 carefully, Williams leading with her hand on her weapon. The door was slightly ajar. Williams pushed it open with her foot, announcing, "Federal agent!" The suite was a disaster. Furniture overturned, glass shattered, blood on the white carpet, but no bodies. Williams moved through the rooms tactically while Ian stood frozen in the doorway. "Clear," she called from the bedroom. "But you need to see this." Ian found her staring at the wall above the bed. Written in what looked like lipstick were the words, "You're too late. Check the warehouse." "Rosa's handwriting," Ian confirmed, his voice hollow. Williams was already on her phone. "This is Captain Williams, authorization code Delta 77. I need all available units to—" She looked at Ian. "Martinez Import-Export, 2500 Northwest 74th Street, he provided. As she called in backup, Ian noticed something on the floor, a cufflink, gold with an inset diamond. He recognized it immediately. He'd given them to Rosa for their 10th anniversary. "She left this on purpose," he said, showing Williams. "She's leaving breadcrumbs, or bait." Williams holstered her weapon. "We need to move. If Stone's lost it completely, if he thinks Rosa betrayed him." They ran for the elevator, both thinking the same thing. A federal agent trained in violence pushed past his breaking point, feeling betrayed by the woman he'd risked everything for. Ian's phone rang as they reached the car. Bruce Caldwell. "Ian, thank God! Where are you?" "Rosa called an emergency meeting at the warehouse. Said you authorized it, but—" "Bruce, listen carefully. Do not go to that warehouse, understand? What's happening? Just trust me. And if you're really FBI like my investigator thinks, now would be a good time to call in the cavalry." Silence. Then, "They're already en route. Ian, what have you gotten yourself into?" "I'll explain later. Just keep everyone away from that warehouse." Williams drove like a woman possessed, running red lights with her emergency flashers on. The Sunday morning traffic was light, but every second felt like an eternity. "You know this is probably a trap," she said. "I know. Rosa's playing us all. She wants us to rush in, wants the confrontation." "I know. So why are we doing exactly what she wants?" Ian looked out at the Miami skyline, his city, his empire built from nothing now crumbling around him. "Because sometimes the only way out of a trap is through it. And because despite everything, she's still my wife." Williams glanced at him. "You still love her." "I love who she was, who she could have been." His voice was heavy with grief. "But that woman died somewhere between the first lie and the first line of cocaine." The warehouse district loomed ahead, industrial buildings casting long shadows in the morning light. Somewhere in that maze of concrete and steel, Rosa Martinez was orchestrating the final act of her elaborate betrayal, and Ian Martinez, the boy from the docks who'd built an empire, was walking straight into her web. But this time, he wasn't walking alone. The Martinez Import-Export warehouse sat like a concrete beast in the morning sun, its loading docks gaping like hungry mouths. FBI Special Agent Diane Vargas stood behind an unmarked van 2 blocks away, coordinating the multi-agency response through her headset while Ian and Captain Williams waited beside her. "Thermal imaging shows 2 heat signatures inside," a tech specialist reported. "Main warehouse floor, northern section." "Just 2? Williams frowned. "Where's the emergency meeting? Where's the staff?" Ian's phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. "I know you're outside. Come in alone or he dies. You have 5 minutes." He showed it to the agents. Vargas immediately shook her head. "Absolutely not. You're a civilian. I'm the only one she'll talk to." Ian was already moving. "She's got your detective in there. You want him alive? This is the only way." "Mr. Martinez." Williams started. 4 minutes, Ian said, walking toward the warehouse. "Be ready to move when I signal." The morning air was thick with humidity and the salt tang from the nearby bay. Ian's footsteps echoed on the empty street, each one carrying him closer to the woman who'd shared his bed while planning his destruction. He thought about their wedding day, Rosa in white lace spinning on the dance floor. Had she always been capable of this? Or had he somehow failed her, driven her to this desperate performance? The side entrance was unlocked. Ian stepped into the familiar smell of cardboard and machine oil, the warehouse where he'd built his dreams now, the stage for their destruction. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows between the towering shelves of inventory. "Rosa?" His voice echoed in the vast space. "Over here, mi amor." He followed her voice to the northern section, where a bizarre scene awaited. Detective Marcus Stone, the man he'd known as Randall Blake, sat zip-tied to a metal chair, duct tape across his mouth, blood seeping from a gash on his forehead. Rosa stood behind him in a black cocktail dress, incongruous in the industrial setting, holding a Glock 19 with disturbing familiarity. "You came," she said, her smile radiant and terrifying. "I knew you would. You always were predictable, Ian. Let him go, Rosa. Whatever this is, he doesn't deserve. She laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. "Let's talk about what people deserve, shall we? Did I deserve to waste my youth managing your books while you played CEO? Did I deserve 15 years of missionary position and conversations about shipping manifests? So you decided to steal millions and frame me for drug smuggling? I decided to take what I earned." Her grip on the gun never wavered. "Do you know how easy it was? How pathetically trusting you were? Handle the finances, Rosa. You're so good with numbers, Rosa. You handed me the keys to everything." Stone made muffled sounds through the tape, his eyes pleading. Rosa glanced down at him with contempt. "Shut up, Marcus. Or should I say Detective Stone? Yes, I've known for weeks who you really are." She looked back at Ian. "Men are so easy. Show them a little skin, cry about your mean husband, and they'll believe anything. He actually thought he was saving me from you." "The FBI is outside," Ian said carefully. "There's no way out of this." "FBI?" Rosa's eyes sparkled with manic glee. "Even better. A bigger audience for the grand finale." She moved the gun to Stone's head. The detective's eyes went wide, sweat beading on his forehead. "Here's what's going to happen," Rosa continued conversationally. "You're going to transfer all the company accounts to my Cayman holdings. Then you're going to sign this lovely confession admitting to drug smuggling, money laundering, and bribing a federal agent. Detective Stone here will tragically die in the confrontation, and I'll be the heroic wife who tried to stop her criminal husband. That's insane. No one will believe, won't they?" Rosa pulled a digital recorder from her purse, hitting play. Ian heard his own voice, spliced from various conversations. The Colombia shipments. Pay off the DEA, move the money offshore, eliminate the problem. "Amazing what you can do with audio editing software," Rosa said. "I've got hours of these, enough to muddy the waters, create reasonable doubt. By the time lawyers sort through it all, I'll be in a non-extradition country living my best life." Ian studied his wife, this stranger wearing Rosa's face. When had she become this? Or had she always been capable of such calculated cruelty, hidden beneath the mask of devoted spouse? "Why?" he asked simply. "If you were that unhappy, why not just leave?" For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Pain. Regret? Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. Because leaving meant starting over with nothing. Do you know what it's like to grow up poor in Colombia? To claw your way out only to become someone's glorified accountant? She pressed the gun harder against Stone's head. "I earned every penny of that money. 15 years of fake orgasms and pretending your business stories were interesting. This is my severance package." "Rosa, enough talking. The transfers. Now." Ian pulled out his phone slowly. "I need the account numbers." She rattled them off from memory. Of course she'd memorized them. As Ian pretended to initiate transfers, he activated the recording app Wayne had installed, then typed a message to Vargas. "North section. 1 hostile, 1 hostage. Wait for signal." "Done," he lied, showing her a fabricated confirmation screen Wayne had prepared for this possibility. "Good boy. Now the confession." She tossed him a document. "Sign it." Ian read through the confession, buying time. It was masterfully crafted, containing just enough truth to be believable. Rosa had been planning this for months, maybe years. "You know," he said conversationally, signing slowly, "there's one thing I don't understand. Why involve Stone at all? You could have robbed me blind without the DEA angle." Rosa's smile turned dreamy. "Because I wanted to destroy you completely. Not just financially, but spiritually. I wanted you to know that everyone, your wife, the federal agents, even your precious business partners, everyone was against you. I wanted you to feel as alone as I've felt in this marriage. You were never alone. I loved you. You loved your idea of me, the grateful girl from Colombia who owed you everything." She moved closer, keeping the gun on Stone. "But I got tired of being grateful, tired of being less than, so I decided to take it all." Stone mumbled something urgent through his gag. Rosa ignored him, focused on Ian. "There's just one problem with your plan," Ian said, handing back the signed confession. "What's that?" "You forgot who I used to be before the suits and boardrooms." His voice hardened. "I'm still that kid from the docks who learned to survive by reading people, and I've been reading you for 15 years. Rosa's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" "Meaning I know you won't shoot him. Not because you're not capable, God knows you've proven that. But because the moment you pull that trigger, SWAT snipers take you down, and you're too narcissistic to die before enjoying your victory." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Ian took a step closer. "Look at me, Rosa. Really look at me. Do I look like a man who came here unprepared?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. She glanced toward the windows, searching for the glint of rifle scopes. It was all the distraction Stone needed. Despite being bound, he threw his weight backward, toppling the chair and himself away from the gun. Rosa spun, trying to track him, and Ian lunged. They crashed into a shelf unit, boxes of imported electronics raining down. The gun skittered across the concrete floor. Rosa fought like a wildcat, nails raking across Ian's face, knee driving toward his groin. But 15 years of yoga was no match for a youth spent in dock brawls. Ian pinned her against the concrete, his weight holding her down as she thrashed and cursed in Spanish. "It's over, Rosa." "Nothing's over," she spat in his face. "You think you've won? I've got copies of everything. Lawyers who'll destroy you." "You'll never, Rosa Martinez. You're under arrest for embezzlement, conspiracy, and attempted murder." Agent Vargas appeared above them, weapon drawn. Behind her, tactical teams flooded the warehouse. As they cuffed Rosa, she looked at Ian with pure hatred. "I should have killed you years ago, made it look like an accident." "Probably," Ian agreed, wiping blood from his scratched face. "But you always did overthink things." Paramedics freed Stone, who immediately vomited once the gag was removed. Williams rushed to her detective's side, her expression mixing relief and fury. "You're done, Stone," she said quietly. "Badge and gun. We'll sort out the criminal charges later." "Captain, I can explain." "Save it for internal affairs." She turned away, disgust evident. As they led Rosa out, she managed one last poisonous smile at Ian. "Check your offshore accounts, mi amor. I left you some surprises." Ian watched his former wife, he corrected mentally, disappear into a federal vehicle. Around him, agents processed the scene, collecting evidence of crimes that spanned years and continents. His empire lay in ruins, his marriage revealed as an elaborate fiction, his future uncertain. Bruce Caldwell appeared at his elbow. "You okay?" "You really are FBI," Ian said, too exhausted for surprise. 8 years, assigned to monitor potential criminal infiltration of legitimate businesses. Bruce's expression was sympathetic. "For what it's worth, I never thought you were dirty. Just unlucky in love." "Spectacularly unlucky." Ian looked around the warehouse, his life's work now a crime scene. "What happens now?" "Now we unravel the mess. FBI takes lead on the corruption charges against Stone and any dirty DEA agents. The embezzlement and attempted murder stay with local prosecutors. You'll need to testify, probably multiple times." "And my business?" Bruce hesitated. "That depends on what Rosa's surprises are. But Ian, you might want to prepare for the worst." As if on cue, Valerie Chen called. Ian put her on speaker. "Ian, thank God you're alive, but we have a problem. Rosa initiated transfers before her arrest. All the company accounts are frozen, pending federal investigation. And there's more. Tell me. She filed papers yesterday claiming the business was built with drug money, requesting seizure under RICO statutes. Ian. She's trying to destroy the company even from custody. Ian closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 15 years of betrayal crushing down. Rosa had played the long game perfectly, ensuring that even if she lost, he'd lose everything too. Do what you can, he told Valerie. I'll be there after I finish with the FBI. As crime scene techs photographed the scattered confession, now evidence against Rosa rather than him, Ian allowed himself a moment of bitter admiration. His wife had orchestrated a masterpiece of vengeance, turning love into a weapon of mass destruction. But she'd forgotten one thing. Ian Martinez had built an empire from nothing once. He could do it again. The Miami sun climbed higher, burning away the morning shadows. Somewhere in federal custody, Rosa was probably already planning her next move. Detective Stone faced disgrace and prison. Captain Williams watched her career implode. And Ian? Ian stood in the wreckage of his life, bloodied but not broken, already calculating his resurrection. The trap had snapped shut, catching everyone in its teeth. But sometimes, he reflected, the only way to escape a trap was to spring it yourself and survive the consequences. Now came the hard part, rebuilding from the ashes Rosa had left behind. The Versailles restaurant in Little Havana hummed with its usual energy on Monday evening, families sharing platters of black beans and rice, businessmen negotiating over cortaditos, tourists sampling their first authentic Cuban sandwich. In a private dining room reserved for special occasions, Ian Martinez sat across from his wife for what would be their last meal together. Rosa looked immaculate despite spending the previous night in federal custody. Her lawyer, a shark named David Silverstein, who'd made his reputation defending cartel wives, had gotten her released on a $2 million bond with an ankle monitor. She wore a black dress that covered the device, her hair swept up to reveal the emerald earrings Ian had given her for their 5th anniversary. "Thank you for agreeing to this," she said, her voice carrying none of the venom from the warehouse. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished. "Silverstein said you had a proposal." Ian kept his voice neutral, though sitting this close to her made his skin crawl. The scratches she'd left on his face had scabbed over, war wounds from their final battle. "Always business with you." Rosa's laugh was bitter. "Can't we just have dinner? One last time?" "We're past that, Rosa." She studied him over her water glass. The federal monitoring conditions prohibited alcohol. "You look tired. Funny how discovering your wife's elaborate plot to destroy you affects your sleep. I never wanted it to go this far." She leaned forward, and for a moment Ian saw a flash of the young woman he'd fallen in love with. "You have to believe that. Things just spiraled." "Spiraled?" Ian's voice hardened. "You stole millions, fucked a federal agent, and tried to frame me for drug smuggling. That's not a spiral, Rosa. That's a calculated campaign." The waiter appeared with their appetizers, croquetas for her, empanadas for him. Neither touched the food. "Do you remember our first date here?" Rosa asked suddenly. "You were so nervous, trying to impress me with your Spanish." "I remember." Against his will, Ian's mind drifted back 20 years. He'd brought her to Versailles because it reminded her of home, spent the whole meal mangling pronunciation while she gently corrected him. They'd closed the place down, talking until 2 a.m. about dreams and ambitions. "You told me that night that you'd build an empire," Rosa continued, "that you'd never be that poor kid from the docks again. I believed you. And I told you we'd build it together. I believed that too." "We did build it together, Ian. Every contract, every expansion, every victory I was there, running the numbers, managing the books, making sure your dreams had solid foundations." Her voice turned bitter. "But somewhere along the way it became your empire, your success. I became invisible. That's revisionist bullshit, and you know it. I never what? Never introduced me as your CFO? Always my wife Rosa, she helps with the books. Never made me a full partner? My name isn't even on the company charter, Ian. 15 years of 60-hour weeks and I'm still just an employee." The accusation stung because it held a kernel of truth. Ian had always seen the business as his baby, Rosa as his invaluable support, but support wasn't partnership, and gratitude wasn't respect. So you decided to burn it all down? I decided to take what I was owed. Rosa's mask slipped, revealing the fury beneath. Do you know how it feels to be brilliant and treated like decoration? To have men talk past you to your husband at every meeting? To build something magnificent and get patted on the head like a clever pet? And Stone made you feel different? Randall Marcus, whoever he was. He saw me. Not as Ian's wife or Ian's bookkeeper, but as Rosa. Brilliant, capable, dangerous Rosa. She smiled sadly. Of course, that was all manipulation, too. Seems I'm destined to be used by the men in my life. Their entrees arrived ropa vieja for Ian, as she'd promised that last phone call, vaca frita for her. The familiar smells transported him to happier times, Sunday dinners at this same restaurant, planning their future over black beans and plantains. What's your proposal? Ian asked, cutting into the tender beef. Rosa reached into her purse, producing a folded document. Full confession, everything, the embezzlement, the affair, the frame job. I'll detail every crime, exonerate you completely. Ian set down his fork. In exchange for? You drop the civil suits. Let me keep what's in the offshore accounts, call it a divorce settlement. And you tell the prosecutors you don't want maximum charges. With Silverstein's negotiating and your statement, I might get 5 to 7 instead of 20 to life. You want me to help you? I want you to be the man I fell in love with. The one who saw a struggling girl and offered help instead of judgment. Tears gathered in her eyes, and Ian couldn't tell if they were genuine or performed. With Rosa, maybe there was no difference anymore. The money you stole represents jobs, Rosa, employees who trusted us, families depending on those paychecks. I know. She pushed food around her plate. I told myself they were collateral damage, that you'd take care of them because you always take care of everyone except yourself, except us. There is no us, not anymore. No, she agreed quietly. I killed us. Slowly at first, then all at once. They ate in silence for several minutes, the ghost of their marriage haunting the space between them. Outside the private room, life continued laughter, music, the clink of glasses toasting to better days. I need to tell you something, Rosa said finally, about the warehouse. I couldn't have shot him. Stone. I wanted you to think I was capable of it, but... She met his eyes. I'm not a killer, Ian. Just a thief and a fool. Why tell me this? Because I want you to remember one true thing about me. When everything else is lies and manipulation, remember that I couldn't kill someone, not even to save myself. Ian studied his former wife, soon to be convicted felon, and felt the anger that had sustained him beginning to ebb. In its place came something worse, pity. I'll consider your proposal, he said, but I want something else. What? The truth. All of it. When did you stop loving me? When did I become the enemy? Rosa was quiet for so long Ian thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I never stopped loving you. That's the worst part. I loved you while I was stealing from you. Loved you while I was in Marcus's bed. Loved you even as I planned your destruction. She laughed, brittle and broken. Do you know what it's like to love someone and hate what you've become with them? To look at your life and realize you've disappeared into someone else's shadow? You could have talked to me. We could have... Could we? Really? Rosa's eyes flashed. When? Between your 18-hour days building the empire? During the 5 minutes you'd spare for dinner before falling asleep over spreadsheets? Face it, Ian, you were married to the business. I was just the mistress you came home to. The accusation hung between them like a blade. Ian wanted to deny it, to list all the ways he'd shown his love. But sitting in this room where they'd planned their future, he couldn't escape the truth. He'd loved Rosa, but he'd loved his ambition more. She'd been a partner in his success, but never a priority in his life. I'm sorry, he said finally, for my part in this, for making you feel invisible. Don't. Tears ran down her cheeks now, real ones that smudged her mascara. Don't be kind. I can't bear your kindness. Be angry. Hate me. It's easier. I don't hate you, Rosa. I hate what we became. What we did to each other. She pulled out a handkerchief, one of his, he noticed, monogrammed with his initials. Will you consider my proposal? I'll talk to Valerie. But Rosa, understand something. Whatever I decide, it's not forgiveness. It's not reconciliation. It's just ending this with whatever dignity we have left. Dignity. She stood, smoothing her dress. I used to have that, along with integrity, loyalty, honor. Amazing what you'll trade for a few moments of feeling alive. Was it worth it? Rosa considered the question, her hand on the door handle. Ask me in 5 to 7 years. If I'm still sane, if I still remember what champagne tastes like, if I can look at myself in the mirror without seeing a stranger, maybe then I'll know. She turned back one last time. For what it's worth, Ian, you're going to be fine. You'll rebuild, remarry, have the life you always wanted. Me? I'll be a cautionary tale, the woman who had everything and burned it down for spite and passion. Rosa. Goodbye, Ian. Thank you for dinner. For everything. She left, her heels clicking on the tile floor, the sound fading into the restaurant's ambient noise. Ian sat alone in the private room, their barely touched meals growing cold, the weight of 20 years settling on his shoulders like a burial shroud. The waiter appeared. Would you like boxes, senor? No. Ian stood, leaving cash on the table. I'm done here. Outside, Little Havana pulsed with life. Music spilled from open windows, couples danced on sidewalks, the air thick with the scent of cigars and cafe. Ian walked to his car, each step carrying him further from the man he'd been, the life he'd built, the woman he'd loved and lost long before tonight. His phone buzzed. Wayne Rodriguez. Heard about dinner. You okay? Ian typed back, getting there. Because what else was there to do but move forward? Rosa would take her deal or face trial. The business would survive or fold. He would rebuild or retreat. But tonight, in a Cuban restaurant where they'd once dreamed of forever, Ian Martinez had finally said goodbye to his past. Tomorrow he'd start building his future. But tonight, he sat in his car in the parking lot, watching couples enter Versailles with hope in their eyes, and mourned the death of a love that had turned poisonous long before either of them had the courage to admit it. The federal courthouse in downtown Miami buzzed with barely contained chaos. News vans lined the street, reporters jostling for position as the principals in what the media had dubbed the Paradise Betrayal arrived for the emergency hearing. Ian Martinez pushed through the crowd, ignoring the shouted questions and thrust microphones, Valerie Chen at his side like a designer-clad guardian angel. Mr. Martinez, how does it feel to be betrayed by your wife? Ian, are you planning to testify against her? Is it true she spent stolen money on plastic surgery? That last one was new. Ian filed it away with all the other salacious rumors that had sprouted like fungus in the 3 days since Rosa's arrest. The media loved a good fall-from-grace story, and Rosa Martinez, beautiful, brilliant, and utterly corrupt, was ratings gold. Inside the courthouse, the circus atmosphere intensified. FBI agents huddled with prosecutors, DEA officials shot poisonous looks at their federal cousins, and defense attorneys circled like well-dressed vultures. At the center of it all sat Judge Catherine Morales, a non-nonsense jurist known for her intolerance of grandstanding and her fondness for maximum sentences. All rise, the bailiff called. Ian took his seat in the gallery, noting the players. Rosa at the defense table with Silverstein, wearing a conservative suit that couldn't quite hide the ankle monitor. Detective Marcus Stone at another table, flanked by his own lawyers, looking like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. Captain Patricia Williams in the witness section, her career hanging by a thread. And scattered throughout the various criminals, informants, and victims caught in Rosa's web. We're here, Judge Morales began, because the government has filed an emergency motion to revoke Mrs. Martinez's bail based on new evidence. Mr. Prosecutor. Assistant U.S. Attorney James Thornton stood, his expression grim. Your Honor, in the past 72 hours, we've uncovered evidence of a conspiracy that goes far beyond simple embezzlement. Mrs. Martinez didn't just steal from her husband's company, she was actively working with international drug cartels to launder money through legitimate businesses. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Ian felt his stomach drop. This was new. Thornton continued, producing documents. Financial records show that Mrs. Martinez established connections with the Torino crime family and the Colombian Valdez cartel. She used her position to create a sophisticated laundering network, moving over $30 million in drug proceeds through shell companies. Objection! Silverstein shot to his feet. These are unsubstantiated allegations. Substantiated by her own records, Thornton interrupted. Mrs. Martinez kept detailed documentation, apparently planning to use it as leverage. She recorded conversations, photographed meetings, created a blackmail treasure trove. Unfortunately for her, it also proves her guilt beyond any doubt. The prosecutor played an audio recording. Rosa's voice filled the courtroom, speaking Spanish with someone identified as Carlos Valdez. The shipments arrive Thursday. My husband suspects nothing. The DEA fool thinks he's investigating, but I've got him focused on phantom crimes while we move the real product. Yes, the detective is completely under control. Men are so predictable. Ian gripped the bench, his knuckles white. Each revelation was another nail in the coffin of the woman he'd thought he knew. Rosa stared straight ahead, her expression carved from stone. Furthermore, Thornton continued, we have evidence that Mrs. Martinez attempted to order the murder of her husband. This time, the gallery erupted. Judge Morales banged her gavel. Order! I'll clear this courtroom! Thornton produced phone records, text messages, surveillance footage. Carlos Mendez, a known contract killer, was paid $100,000 by Mrs. Martinez. He's agreed to testify in exchange for reduced charges. They brought Mendez in a compact man with dead eyes and facial tattoos. Speaking through a translator, he detailed Rosa's instructions. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Ensure Ian suffered before dying. Leave the body where it would be found quickly so she could play the grieving widow. Ian felt Valerie's hand on his arm, grounding him. He'd known Rosa planned to frame him, maybe even have him killed. But hearing the cold details, the casual way she'd ordered his death like ordering takeout, shattered whatever illusions remained. Your Honor, Silverstein tried damage control. My client was under extreme emotional distress, manipulated by a corrupt federal agent. About that, Judge Morales interrupted. Mr. Stone, I believe your attorney has something to share. Stone's lawyer, a nervous young public defender, stood. Detective Stone wishes to make a full confession in exchange for consideration. Stone himself stood, his voice barely audible. I betrayed my oath, my department, and my country. I allowed myself to be seduced literally and figuratively by Rosa Martinez. I provided her with classified information, helped her evade detection, and... He swallowed hard. I helped her plan crimes against innocent people, including her husband. You son of a bitch, Rosa hissed, her mask finally cracking. You said you loved me. I did love you, Stone replied miserably. But you used that love to turn me into something I'm not. Someone I can't live with being... Order! Judge Morales banged her gavel again. Mrs. Martinez, control yourself or I'll have you gagged. The revelations continued like dominoes falling. FBI agents testified about the scope of the conspiracy. Financial experts detailed the money trails. Former associates of Rosa's, granted immunity, described her recruitment efforts, her promises of wealth and protection, her threats when crossed. Wayne Rodriguez took the stand, presenting his surveillance evidence with the precision of the veteran cop he was. The photos, videos, and audio recordings painted a damning picture of a woman who'd spent years building a criminal empire while playing the devoted wife. She was meticulous, Wayne testified. Every crime documented, every conversation recorded. She wanted leverage over everyone: her husband, her lovers, her criminal associates. Classic narcissistic behavior combined with high intelligence and zero conscience. A dangerous combination. Through it all, Rosa sat motionless, her beautiful face a mask of indifference. Only her hands betrayed her, clenched so tightly her manicured nails drew blood from her palms. Finally, it was Ian's turn. He took the stand, raising his right hand, swearing to tell the truth. The courtroom fell silent. Mr. Martinez, Thornton began gently, can you describe your relationship with the defendant? She was my wife for 15 years, my business partner, the person I trusted most in the world. Ian's voice was steady, though his heart hammered. I thought we were building a life together, Turns out she was building an exit strategy. When did you first suspect something was wrong? Ian described the slow realization, the late nights, the mysterious expenses, the growing distance between them. He talked about hiring Wayne, discovering the affair, uncovering the embezzlement. His voice broke only once, when describing the moment he'd watched her kiss another man. She didn't just steal money, he said. She stole 15 years of my life, made me question every moment, every memory. Was any of it real? Did she ever love me? Or was I always just a mark? Objection, Silverstein said weakly. Calls for speculation. Overruled. Continue, Mr. Martinez. I keep thinking about our wedding day. She cried during the vows I thought from joy. Now I wonder if she was mourning her freedom, or maybe she was just that good an actress. He looked directly at Rosa for the first time. I'll never know, will I? Because everything about you was a performance. Rosa's mask finally, completely shattered. It wasn't all a lie, she screamed, jumping to her feet. I loved you, you bastard, but you loved your company more. You left me no choice. You had every choice, Ian replied quietly. You could have talked to me, could have left, could have done anything except destroy everything we built. Built? We built? Rosa laughed hysterically as bailiffs moved to restrain her. You built! I was just the help, the invisible woman keeping your books while you played emperor! Judge Morales gavelled repeatedly. Remove the defendant! As they dragged Rosa out, she fixed Ian with a look of pure hatred. I should have killed you myself. Should have watched you die knowing I did it. You destroyed me first. The courtroom sat in stunned silence after her removal. Judge Morales took a deep breath. Well, I think we've heard enough. Bail is revoked. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. As for you, Detective Stone, I hope you've made peace with your deity of choice. You're going to have plenty of time for prayer in federal prison. As the hearing concluded, Ian found himself surrounded by reporters again. But this time, he stopped. I have something to say, he announced. The crowd quieted. My wife, my ex-wife, accused me of loving my business more than her. She was wrong. I loved the dream the business represented. The kid from the docks who made something of himself, who proved everyone wrong. But I forgot that dreams mean nothing without someone to share them with. I forgot to love the person who helped make those dreams real. He looked directly into the cameras. Rosa Martinez committed terrible crimes. She'll pay for them. But I'm not innocent either. I'm guilty of taking her for granted, of making her feel invisible, of building an empire on the foundation of a neglected marriage. That's my crime, and I'll carry that sentence for the rest of my life. Inside the courthouse, federal agents were processing evidence, building cases that would take years to fully prosecute. Outside, Miami baked under the afternoon sun, indifferent to the human drama playing out in its heart. Ian walked to his car, each step lighter despite the weight of loss. The dominoes had fallen, revealing the full scope of Rosa's betrayal. But they'd also revealed hard truths about himself, about the man he'd become in pursuit of success. His phone rang. Bruce Caldwell. Saw the news, Bruce said. How you holding up? Still standing. You? Been better. FBI's got me on administrative leave pending investigation. Turns out working undercover in your friend's company while his wife runs a criminal enterprise doesn't look great on the resume. I'm sorry, Bruce. Don't be. I made my choices. We all did. Bruce paused. What's next for you? Ian looked out at the Miami skyline, his city, his former kingdom. I honestly don't know. For the first time in 20 years, I have no plan. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe not. As he drove home not to the penthouse, which felt like a mausoleum now, but to a small apartment he'd rented in Coral Gables, Ian thought about dominoes. How one small push could topple an empire. How Rosa's first lie had led inevitably to this moment. How his first neglect had planted seeds of resentment that bloomed into destruction. But dominoes could be reset. New patterns created. It would take time, patience, and more humility than he'd ever had to summon. But Ian Martinez had built an empire from nothing once. This time, he'd build a life. The federal courthouse had become a circus. 6 months after Rosa Martinez's arrest, Her trial had captured the nation's attention, a perfect storm of sex, money, betrayal, and murder that cable news channels couldn't resist. Nancy Grace called it the ultimate marital betrayal. CNN ran hourly updates. Even international media descended on Miami, drawn by the operatic scale of the scandal. Ian Martinez sat in the witness waiting room, his new reality weighing on him like a lead blanket. Through the window, he could see the media scrum outside, reporters doing stand-ups, protesters waving signs demanding justice, curious onlookers hoping for a glimpse of the players in this sordid drama. "Mr. Martinez?" The bailiff appeared at the door. "They're ready for you." Ian stood, straightening his tie, not the $500 Hermes ones from his CEO days, but a simple navy blue from Target. His empire was gone, liquidated to pay debts and legal fees. The man who'd once commanded boardrooms now lived in a one-bedroom apartment and drove a 10-year-old Honda. The courtroom was packed. In the gallery, he spotted familiar faces, former employees, business associates, curious strangers who'd followed the case. At the prosecution table, Assistant U.S. Attorney Thornton reviewed his notes, and at the defense table, Rosa. 6 months in federal custody had changed her. The designer clothes were replaced by a plain gray suit. Her hair, once salon-perfect, hung limp around her face. But her eyes, those dark eyes that had captivated him 20 years ago, still burned with defiance. "State your name for the record," the clerk instructed after Ian was sworn in. "Ian Eduardo Martinez." "Mr. Martinez," Thornton began, "how long were you married to the defendant?" 15 years. Together for 20. "Can you describe your relationship?" Ian chose his words carefully. "I thought we were partners in every sense. Built a business together, planned a future together. I trusted her completely." "When did that trust begin to erode?" Ian recounted the story, the late nights, the missing money, the affair with Detective Stone. Each word felt like reliving the betrayal. Rosa watched him with an expression he couldn't read. Contempt, regret, or just the calculated assessment of a predator studying prey. "Mr. Martinez," Thornton continued, "the defense claims you were aware of your wife's activities, that you were, in fact, the mastermind behind the criminal enterprise. How do you respond?" "That's a lie." Ian's voice was steady. "I built my company legitimately, through hard work and honest deals. Rosa corrupted it for her own purposes." "Objection!" Silverstein rose. "Characterization." "Overruled," Judge Morales said curtly. "Continue, Mr. Thornton." The prosecutor produced documents. "Can you identify these?" Ian examined them, forged signatures, falsified contracts, shipping manifests for containers that never existed. "These are forgeries. That's my signature, but I didn't sign them." "How can you be certain?" "Because I was in the hospital having emergency gallbladder surgery on this date." Ian pointed to one document. "And this one is dated 3 days after my father's funeral, when I was in Puerto Rico. Rosa handled everything during those periods. I trusted her." The questioning continued for 2 hours. Ian detailed the slow unraveling of his life, the discovery of Rosa's crimes, the moment he realized the woman he loved was a stranger. Through it all, Rosa watched with those burning eyes. Finally, it was Silverstein's turn. The defense attorney approached like a shark scenting blood. "Mr. Martinez, isn't it true you're testifying against your wife to save yourself?" "No. I'm testifying because it's the truth. But you've received immunity from prosecution, correct?" "Conditional immunity, yes, because I had no knowledge of the crimes." "How convenient." Silverstein's smile was oily. "Your wife takes all the blame while you walk free." "I'm not walking free." Ian's composure cracked. "I lost everything. My business, my home, my savings. 20 years of work destroyed. So no, Mr. Silverstein, I'm not walking free. I'm crawling through the wreckage she left behind." "You sound angry." "I am angry. She didn't just steal money. She stole years of my life, made me question every memory, every moment of happiness. Do you know what it's like to wonder if your entire marriage was a con? So you're seeking revenge through your testimony?" "I'm seeking justice. There's a difference." The cross-examination was brutal. Silverstein tried every angle, painting Ian as a scorned husband, a criminal mastermind throwing his wife under the bus, a negligent businessman who should have known. But Ian held firm, answering each accusation with calm precision. Then came the moment that broke the case wide open. "Mr. Martinez," Thornton said on redirect, "we've heard testimony about the defendant's relationship with Detective Stone. Were there others?" "I've been told there were—" "Objection!" Silverstein shouted. "Hearsay." "I'll allow it," Judge Morales ruled. "Answer the question." Ian took a breath. "The investigation revealed 3 other men Rosa was involved with during our marriage. A banker who helped set up her offshore accounts, a customs official who facilitated the smuggling, and a Colombian national connected to the Valdez cartel." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Rosa's mask finally slipped, her face flushing with rage. "They were business relationships," she hissed, loud enough for the court reporter to capture. "The kind of business conducted in hotel rooms?" Thornton asked smoothly. "We have receipts, Mrs. Martinez, photos. Would you like to see them?" What followed was a systematic destruction of Rosa's character. Witness after witness testified to her manipulations, her lies, her cold-blooded planning. The banker, granted immunity, described how she'd seduced him to gain access to international wire systems. The customs official, facing 20 years, detailed their arrangement sex and money in exchange for looking the other way. But the most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source. "The prosecution calls Isabella Martinez Restrepo." Ian's blood froze. Isabella Rosa's younger sister, flown in from Bogota. She took the stand wearing a simple black dress, her resemblance to Rosa striking but softer, sadder. "Miss Restrepo," Thornton began gently, "what was your relationship with the defendant?" "She's my sister. Was my sister." Isabella's English was accented but clear. "I don't know the woman in that chair. Can you elaborate?" Isabella looked at Rosa, tears streaming down her face. "Growing up, Rosa was my hero. She escaped poverty, made something of herself. She sent money home, paid for my education, helped our mother get medical treatment. We thought she'd married a good man, built an honest life." "When did that perception change?" "When she asked me to hide money for her, millions of dollars, in accounts under fake names. She said her husband was abusive, that she needed escape funds." Isabella's voice hardened. "I believed her. I helped her. Then I learned the truth." "Which was?" "That she'd become the very thing she'd taught me to despise: a criminal, a liar, a woman who destroyed everyone who loved her." Isabella turned to Rosa. "Mama died thinking you were still her perfect daughter. Thank God she never learned the truth." Rosa erupted. "You ungrateful puta! Everything you have is because of me. That education, that apartment, your precious respectability, I paid for all of it." "With stolen money!" Isabella shot back. "Blood money! You think I can keep any of it knowing where it came from?" Judge Morales gavelled for order as the sisters screamed at each other in rapid Spanish. It took 3 bailiffs to restore calm. When testimony resumed, the government presented its final evidence, a detailed accounting of Rosa's crimes. $8.5 million embezzled over 5 years. Shell companies in 7 countries. Forged documents numbering in the hundreds. And at the center of it all, a woman who'd used everyone around her as tools for her ambition. As Ian left the stand, he passed close to the defense table. Rosa grabbed his arm, her nails digging in. "I loved you," she whispered fiercely. "Whatever else was lies, that was real." Ian looked into those burning eyes one last time. "Maybe you did, in whatever way you're capable of love, but it wasn't enough to stop you from destroying me." He pulled free and walked away, leaving Rosa Martinez to face the consequences of her choices alone. Outside the courthouse, the media descended like vultures, but Ian pushed through without comment. He'd said everything that needed saying under oath. The truth was out now, ugly, painful, and irrefutable. His phone buzzed. A text from Wayne. "You did good in there. Jury's eating it up. She's done." Ian didn't reply. There was no satisfaction in watching Rosa's downfall, only a bone-deep weariness. He'd loved this woman, built a life with her, trusted her with everything. Now she was just another cautionary tale of greed and betrayal. As he drove away in his aging Honda, Ian caught a glimpse of the courthouse in his rearview mirror. Somewhere inside, 12 strangers were deciding Rosa's fate. But Ian's verdict was already in. Guilty of loving the wrong woman. Guilty of trusting too much. Guilty of building dreams on foundations of sand. The sentence? A lifetime of learning to trust again. The letter arrived on a humid Tuesday morning, delivered by a process server who looked apologetic as Ian signed for it. Standing in the doorway of his sparse Coral Gables apartment, Ian recognized the law firm's letterhead immediately, Thornton, Klein, and Associates, the sharks who'd been circling the remains of Martinez import-export like well-dressed vultures. Final notice of asset liquidation, the heading read. Below, in language designed to wound with surgical precision, lay the death certificate of his life's work. The warehouse would be auctioned next week. The office building was already in escrow. 20 years of blood, sweat, and ambition reduced to legalese and line items. Ian's phone rang before he could fully process the loss. Valerie Chen's name appeared on the screen. "Tell me you have good news," he said by way of greeting. "I have news. Whether it's good depends on your perspective." Valerie's voice was carefully neutral. "Rosa's been sentenced." Ian sat heavily on his second-hand couch. "And 25 to life, eligible for parole in 20. The judge was unsympathetic to her defense. 25 years. Rosa would be in her 60s before she breathed free air again. Ian waited for the satisfaction, the sense of justice served. Instead, he felt only hollow. "There's more," Valerie continued. "She's agreed to full asset forfeiture. The government will seize everything, the offshore accounts, the properties in her name, even her jewelry. The U.S. Attorney's Office wants to know if you want to file for victim restitution." "How much is left?" "After legal fees and fines, maybe $2 million, enough to give you a fresh start if you want it. $2 million from the 8.5 she'd stolen." Ian almost laughed. Even in defeat, Rosa had managed to burn most of it away. "File the paperwork," he said. "But I want some of it to go to the employees who lost their jobs. They didn't deserve this." "Ian, that's generous. But I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror." "Set it up, Valerie." After hanging up, Ian stood and surveyed his kingdom, a 900-square-foot apartment with water-stained ceilings and windows that didn't quite close. From penthouse to poverty in 6 months. The American dream in reverse. A knock interrupted his self-pity. Ian opened the door to find Bruce Caldwell holding 2 cups of coffee and a box of pastries from the Cuban bakery down the street. "Figured you could use some caffeine and carbs," Bruce said, inviting himself in. "Heard about the sentencing. News travels fast. It's Miami. News travels at the speed of Chisme." Bruce settled into the apartment's only other chair, a creaky recliner Ian had bought at Goodwill. "How you holding up?" "I'm vertical. That's something." They sat in comfortable silence. 2 men who'd seen their carefully constructed worlds implode. Bruce's FBI career had survived the scandal. Barely. He'd been transferred to white-collar crime. His undercover days over. "I've been thinking," Bruce said eventually, "about what comes next, for both of us. Let me guess. You want to open a food truck, sell Cuban sandwiches to tourists." "Close. I want to start a consulting firm, corporate security, fraud prevention, that kind of thing." Bruce leaned forward. "And I want you to be my partner." Ian nearly choked on his coffee. "I'm the last person companies want advice from. My own wife robbed me blind." "Exactly. You've got the worst-case scenario credentials. Who better to help prevent what happened to you?" Bruce pulled out a folder. "I've run the numbers. With my FBI connections and your business experience, we could build something solid. Small at first, but solid." Ian flipped through the business plan, his mind automatically analyzing projections and market possibilities. For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of the old excitement. "I can't match your investment," he said. "Everything I have is tied up in legal proceedings." "I'm not looking for money. I'm looking for a partner who understands what it's like to lose everything and still get up the next morning." Bruce's expression was serious. "What do you say?" Before Ian could answer, his phone rang again. Carmen's name on the screen made him smile, one of the few things that did these days. "Senor Ian, you must come quickly." "Carmen? What's wrong?" "Nothing wrong. Everything right. The employees, we are all here at the warehouse. You must see. Ian looked at Bruce, who shrugged. Let's go see what your people are up to. They drove to the warehouse in Bruce's sensible FBI-issued sedan, the Miami afternoon sun beating down mercilessly. Ian expected to find chaos, desperate former employees stripping copper from the walls or something equally depressing. Instead, he found order. The warehouse bustled with activity. Former employees moved through the aisles with purpose, organizing inventory, updating spreadsheets, preparing shipments. At the center of it all stood Carmen, directing traffic like a field general in a floral print dress. "Senor Ian!" She engulfed him in a hug that smelled of cafe and determination. "We save what we can!" "Carmen, what is this?" Miguel Santos, the warehouse manager, approached with a clipboard. "When we heard about the liquidation, we couldn't just let everything rot. We've been volunteering, keeping operations running, filling what orders we can. But you're not getting paid. With respect, Jefe, not everything is about money." This from Ana Delgado, the head of shipping. "You gave us jobs when no one else would. Trusted us. We don't forget." Ian looked around at the faces some he'd known for a decade. Others hired just months before Rosa's betrayal came to light. They should have scattered, found new jobs, moved on. Instead, they were here, saving what they could of his dream. "I can't pay you," he said, his voice thick. "I can't even guarantee there'll be jobs when this is over." "We know," Miguel said simply, "but Martinez Import-Export isn't just a company, it's family. And family doesn't abandon family." Wayne Rodriguez appeared from behind a stack of boxes, camera in hand. "Been documenting everything for the bankruptcy court. You've got good people, Ian." "The best," Ian agreed, blinking hard. Over the next hours, Ian threw himself into the work. It felt good to be useful again, to solve problems that didn't involve lawyers or federal agents. Bruce pitched in too, his FBI training making him surprisingly efficient at inventory management. As the sun set, painting the warehouse in shades of gold and amber, Valerie arrived with news. "I found a buyer for the business," she announced. "A consortium from Texas. They're willing to take on the existing contracts, and this is the important part, keep the current staff." A cheer went up from the assembled employees. Ian felt Bruce's hand on his shoulder, steady and supportive. "There's a condition," Valerie continued. "They want you to stay on as a consultant for 6 months, help with the transition, maintain client relationships. The pay isn't what you're used to, but I'll do it," Ian said without hesitation. "If it keeps these people employed, I'll do it." As the impromptu celebration continued around him, Ian stepped outside for air. The warehouse district looked the same as it had 20 years ago when he'd signed his first lease industrial, unglamorous, full of possibility. But he saw it differently now. Not as a kingdom to conquer, but as a community to serve. Carmen found him there, watching the last rays of sun disappear behind the skyline. "You're a good man, Senor Ian," she said softly. "Rosa, she was a fool to throw away such a man." "I wasn't perfect, Carmen. I neglected her, took her for granted." "Ah!" Carmen's hand cut through the air dismissively. "You worked hard, yes, but for the family, for the future. She worked hard too for herself, for greed. That's the difference." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights begin to twinkle. Inside, Ian could hear laughter, music from someone's radio, the sounds of people who'd found purpose in preservation rather than destruction. "So," Carmen said eventually, "what now?" Ian thought about Bruce's offer, about the consulting gig, about the long road ahead. Now we rebuild, differently this time, better. With less trust for pretty women with nice smiles, with more appreciation for the people who stay when times get hard. Ian smiled at his old friend. "Speaking of which, I heard you needed an apartment. I might know a building with a vacancy." Carmen beamed. "You see? Always taking care of everyone. That's why we stay, Senor Ian. That's why we fight for you." As they walked back into the warehouse, Ian felt something shift inside him. The empire he'd built with Rosa was dead, but something new was stirring in its ashes. Not a kingdom this time, but a community. Not subjects to rule, but partners to support. Bruce appeared at his elbow. "So about that consulting firm. We still on?" Ian looked around at his people, his family working to save what they could from the wreckage. Yeah, we're on, but I've got one condition. Name it. We hire locally. Give chances to people who need them. Build something that matters to more than just our bank accounts. Bruce grinned. Now you're talking my language. Caldwell and Martinez Consulting? Martinez and Caldwell sounds better. We'll flip a coin. As the warehouse slowly emptied, employees heading home with promises to return tomorrow, Ian felt the first stirrings of hope since Rosa's arrest. The purification had been brutal, stripping away illusions, burning through ego, leaving him with nothing but truth. But sometimes nothing was the perfect foundation for something better. Carmen was the last to leave, pausing at the door. "Senor Ian, welcome back." "I never left, Carmen." "No," she agreed. "But now you're here, really here. That makes all the difference." The support group met in the basement of St. Catherine's Church every Thursday evening, a collection of souls united by the peculiar devastation of romantic fraud. Ian Martinez sat in the uncomfortable metal folding chair for the third week running, still wondering what had possessed him to walk through those doors in the first place. "Remember," Dr. Patricia Morse, the group facilitator, said in her professionally soothing voice, "healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong, others like you're drowning. Both are normal. Both are valid." Ian studied his fellow victims, though Dr. Morse preferred the term survivors. There was Janet, a retired teacher whose husband of 30 years had been living a complete double life. Marcus, a young tech entrepreneur whose girlfriend had cleaned out his startup funds. Sarah, whose wife had faked cancer to hide gambling debts. And newest to the group, Angela Morrison. Angela sat across the circle, her posture perfect despite the clear weight on her shoulders. Mid-40s, auburn hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, clothes that suggested money once but careful maintenance now. When she'd introduced herself last week, her story had hit uncomfortably close to home husband's sudden death, discovery of massive debts, hidden affairs, accounts emptied. "Ian," Dr. Morse's voice pulled him back. "You've been quiet tonight. Anything you'd like to share?" He considered deflecting, as he had the first 2 weeks. But something about the expectant faces around him, these fellow travelers in the country of betrayal, made him speak. "I sold the penthouse yesterday." The words came out flat, matter-of-fact. "Final asset liquidation. Bought it when the company hit its first $1 million in revenue. Rosa picked out every piece of furniture, every painting. Said it was our castle in the sky." "How did that feel?" Dr. Morse prompted. "Letting it go?" Ian thought about standing in the empty penthouse one last time. The spaces where furniture had been like missing teeth. The view of Biscayne Bay that had once symbolized everything he'd achieved. "Like closing a book I'll never read again," he said finally. "Painful, but necessary." "That's a beautiful metaphor," Angela said softly. It was the first time she'd spoken in group. "The book we can't read again. I have a whole library of those." "Tell us more." "Dr. Morse encouraged. Angela's hands twisted in her lap. "Photo albums I can't open because I don't know which smiles were real. Love letters that might have been copied from the internet. 20 years of inside jokes that were only funny because I didn't know the punchline was me. The worst part," Marcus added, "is how it makes you question your judgment. Like, if I couldn't see this, what else am I missing?" Nods around the circle. Ian felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the suffocating doubt that had become his constant companion. Could he trust his business instincts when he'd missed Rosa's deception? Could he trust anyone when the person who'd shared his bed had been planning his destruction? "I've started writing," he heard himself say. "About everything. The marriage, the betrayal, the investigation. My therapist suggested it, said it might help process everything." "Journaling can be very therapeutic," Dr. Morse agreed. "Not journaling. A book. A real book." Ian managed a wry smile. "Turns out publishers love a good scandal. Got an advance and everything." "Will you use real names?" Janet asked, leaning forward with interest. "Changed for legal reasons, but anyone who knows the case will recognize it. My editor says it could help other people, show them the warning signs I missed." He shrugged. "Or it could just be exploiting my own tragedy for profit. I go back and forth." "It's not exploitation if it helps someone," Angela said firmly. After Richard died and I found out about everything, I searched desperately for stories like mine. I needed to know I wasn't alone in being this blind, this stupid. You're not stupid, Ian said, surprised by his own vehemence. None of us are. We trusted people who were supposed to be trustworthy. That's not stupidity, that's humanity. Their eyes met across the circle, a moment of understanding between two people who'd loved con artists and were still trying to figure out what that said about them. After the meeting, Ian found himself walking out with Angela. The Miami evening was thick with humidity and the promise of rain. I'm parked around the corner, she said, then hesitated. Would you? Like to get coffee? I mean, if you're not busy. I just talking to someone who really understands. There's a Cuban place 2 blocks down, Ian offered. Good coffee, better pastries. They walked in comfortable silence. Two people who'd learned the weight of words misused. The cafe was nearly empty, just them and an elderly couple sharing flan in the corner. So, Angela said after they'd ordered, a book. That's brave. Or narcissistic, I haven't decided yet. What's it called? Ian grimaced. Marketing wants to call it Betrayed in Paradise, a Miami true crime story. I'm fighting for something less sensational. What would you call it? He considered. Maybe just Rosa. Simple. Honest. Like I thought she was. Angela stirred her cortadito thoughtfully. I couldn't write about Richard, not yet. Maybe not ever. Some wounds. Need to stay covered, Ian finished. I get it. Everyone processes differently. Is that what you're doing? Processing? I'm trying. Some days are better than others. Yesterday I signed papers selling the house where I thought I'd grow old. Today I had lunch in my new apartment, if you can call a studio with a hot plate an apartment. Tomorrow. He shrugged. Tomorrow I'll get up and do it again. The getting up is the hardest part, Angela said quietly. That moment when you wake up and for a second everything's fine. Then reality crashes in. Gets easier, Ian said, hoping it wasn't a lie, or at least more familiar. They talked until the cafe closed about their old lives, their new realities, the strange grief of mourning someone who never really existed. Angela had a teenage daughter, Sophie, trying to navigate high school while her world imploded. Ian talked about the business, the employees who'd stood by him, the consulting firm he was building with Bruce. It's not what I planned, he admitted, but maybe that's okay. My plans obviously weren't that reliable. Richard used to say I planned too much, Angela said with a bitter laugh. Turns out he was right. Can't plan for your husband having 3 other families. 3? That we've found so far. His lawyer says there might be more. She shook her head. 20 years of business trips that were really visits to other wives, other children, other lives that were apparently more real than ours. Jesus, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, be grateful. At least Rosa only betrayed you with money and murder plots. Richard betrayed me with entire alternate realities. Despite everything, Ian found himself laughing. Is this what we've become? Comparing traumas like battle scars? Could be worse, Angela said, smiling for the first time all evening. We could be comparing dating apps. God, no, I'm nowhere near ready for that. Me neither. Sophie keeps trying to set me up with her math teacher. Apparently, he's totally single and only kind of boring. High praise from a teenager. The highest. Walking back to their cars, Angela stopped suddenly. Would it be okay if... Could we do this again? Coffee after group? It's just nice to talk to someone who doesn't look at me with pity or try to fix me. I'd like that, Ian said, meaning it. Same place next week? It's a date. Not a date-a-date, a friend date. A betrayed by sociopathic spouse's support date. She flushed. I'm going to stop talking now. Probably wise, Ian agreed, charmed despite himself by her flustered honesty. Driving home to his tiny apartment, Ian felt something he hadn't experienced in months' anticipation. Not for romance, God knew he wasn't ready for that, but for connection, for the possibility that life after Rosa might include more than just survival. His phone buzzed at a red light. A text from his editor. Sample chapters are brilliant, painful, honest, real. This book is going to help a lot of people. Keep writing. Ian thought about Angela searching for stories like hers, about the others in the group desperate to know they weren't alone in their blindness. Maybe that was enough reason to keep excavating his pain, transforming it into something useful. Back in his apartment, he opened his laptop and began to write. Chapter 15. Learning to Trust Again. The hardest part isn't the anger or the grief, or even the humiliation. The hardest part is the doubt that creeps into every interaction, every gesture, every smile. When someone says, "I love you," after you've learned those words can be weapons, how do you believe them? When you've shared a bed with a stranger wearing a familiar face, how do you ever sleep soundly again? I don't have answers, only questions, and the stubborn hope that somewhere between who I was and who I'm becoming lies a person capable of faith without foolishness, trust without blindness, love without losing himself completely. They say time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Time just teaches you to walk with a limp. Outside his window, Miami glittered in the darkness, a city of dreams and schemes where fortunes rose and fell with the tide. Somewhere in federal prison, Rosa was probably lying on a narrow bunk, planning her appeal or her next con. Somewhere in the suburbs, Angela was tucking her daughter into bed, trying to be both parents in a story that had lost its narrator. And in a studio apartment that smelled faintly of mildew and new beginnings, Ian Martinez wrote his way toward whatever came next, one painful word at a time. 6 months later, Ian Martinez stood in the offices of Martinez and Caldwell Consulting, watching the Miami sunrise paint the sky in shades of amber and coral. The space wasn't much a converted strip mall suite between a nail salon and a tax preparer, but it was theirs, built on foundations of hard-won wisdom rather than naive ambition. "You're here early," Bruce said, entering with 2 cups of Cuban coffee and a folder thick with documents. "Big day?" "The Delgado meeting," Ian confirmed, accepting the caffeine gratefully. "If we land this contract, we can actually hire someone, maybe even get a coffee machine that doesn't sound like it's dying." "Dream big, partner." Bruce settled at his desk a thrift store find that wobbled unless you wedged paper under one leg. "Speaking of dreams, how's the book coming?" Ian grimaced. "Final edits. Publisher wants more details about the trial, but some things," he shrugged. "Some things should stay buried." His phone buzzed. A text from Wayne Rodriguez. "Check the news. You'll want to sit down for this." Ian found the story quickly, his blood chilling as he read. Rosa Martinez, federal inmate number 478290004, had been attacked in the prison shower. 3 women, connections to the Valdez cartel, retribution for her cooperation with authorities. She'd survived, barely, but the injuries were severe physical and psychological. "Jesus," Bruce breathed, reading over his shoulder. "Is that Rosa? Yeah." Ian stared at the clinical language of the news report, trying to reconcile it with the woman who'd once danced in his arms at the Fontainebleau. "They've moved her to psychiatric isolation, suicide watch." "You okay?" Ian considered the question. 6 months ago, news of Rosa's suffering might have brought satisfaction or guilt, or a confusing mix of both. Now he felt only a distant sadness, like hearing about a tragedy in a country he'd once visited. "I'm okay," he said, surprised to find it was true. She made her choices. The morning flew by in client meetings and proposal drafts. The Delgado Group, a family-owned import business looking to strengthen their internal controls, signed on the spot, impressed by Ian's honest assessment of his own failures and how to prevent them. "If you couldn't see it coming with your own wife," Old Man Delgado said, "you'll be paranoid enough to catch it in our company. That's what we need, productive paranoia." At lunch, Ian's phone rang, an unknown number with a federal prefix. "Mr. Martinez? This is Dr. Sarah Hendricks at the Federal Medical Center. I'm Rosa Martinez's psychiatrist." Ian's stomach clenched. "Is she? She's stable, physically, but she's been asking for you repeatedly. I wouldn't normally contact a victim, but in this case, she says she has information you need, about hidden assets, other victims, things she didn't disclose during prosecution." "She's lying. It's what she does." "Perhaps, but she's also quite lucid about her condition. She knows she's dying, Mr. Martinez. The injuries, combined with an aggressive cancer diagnosis. She has perhaps 6 months." The words hit harder than expected. Rosa, dying. The force of nature who'd built and destroyed empires, reduced to a hospital bed and borrowed time. I need to think about it, Ian managed. Of course. But don't think too long. Time isn't a luxury any of us have. After hanging up, Ian sat in his car, paralyzed by indecision. Part of him never wanted to see Rosa again. Another part, the part that had loved her for 20 years, whispered that closure required one last conversation. His phone buzzed. Angela, texting from her new job at a non-profit helping fraud victims. Coffee after group tonight? I have news. The normalcy of it, the promise of uncomplicated friendship, made him smile. Wouldn't miss it. Cuban place? Where else? See you at 8. That evening, the support group felt different, lighter somehow, as if collective healing had reached a tipping point where hope outweighed hurt. Marcus talked about his new startup built with better safeguards this time. Janet had started dating cautiously, with full financial disclosure required up front. Even Dr. Morse seemed less clinically detached, more genuinely engaged. Recovery isn't forgetting, she said as they wrapped up. It's integrating the experience into who you're becoming. You're all proof that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of your story. At the cafe, Angela practically glowed with excitement. I got promoted, senior victim advocate, and Sophie made honor roll. And, she paused, suddenly shy. I have a date, a real one, with a human man who has undergone a complete background check. That's wonderful, Ian said, ignoring the unexpected sting of, what? Jealousy? Who's the lucky, thoroughly vetted guy? David from work, divorced, 2 kids, credit score of 750, which he volunteered without my asking. She laughed. We're quite the pair. He ran a background check on me, too. Modern romance at its finest. Sounds perfect for you. What about you? Any romance on the horizon? Ian thought about lying, maintaining the easy friendship they'd built. Instead, he told her about Rosa's condition, the psychiatrist's call, his indecision. Angela listened without judgment, stirring her coffee long after it had cooled. Do you want my honest opinion? Always. Go see her. Not for her she lost the right to your consideration when she tried to have you killed, but for you. So 10 years from now you're not wondering what she might have said. And if it's just another manipulation, then you'll know for sure. Either way, you'll have your answer. They talked until the cafe closed, as had become their tradition. About the book, advance orders were strong. About Sophie's college plans. About the strange journey from victim to survivor to whatever came next. Can I ask you something? Angela said as they walked to their cars. Are you happy? Like actually happy, not just functioning? Ian considered. I'm content, which is more than I expected. You? Getting there. Some days I even forget to be angry. She paused at her car. Ian? Whatever you decide about Rosa, you don't owe her anything. Not forgiveness, not closure, not one more second of your life. Remember that? Driving home, Ian made his decision. One last conversation. Not for Rosa, but for himself. To look the monster in the eye and confirm that's all she'd ever been. In his apartment, a package waited advance copies of his book. The cover was tasteful, not the lurid design marketing had wanted. Just a photo of the Miami skyline at sunset, golden and deceptive. He opened to the dedication page. For the employees of Martinez Import-Export, who showed me that loyalty isn't blind faith but chosen commitment. And for everyone who's ever loved a stranger wearing a familiar face, you weren't foolish. You were human. The shame belongs to those who weaponized that humanity, not to those who offered it freely. His phone rang. Bruce. Hey, partner. Wanted to give you a heads up. Just got a call from the FBI. They're recommending our firm for a major contract. Seems your book has some fans in high places. That's great news. Ian, you sound off. Everything okay? Rosa's dying. Cancer and injuries from an attack. Her psychiatrist wants me to visit. Silence. Then, what are you going to do? I'm going to see her, one last time. End this properly. Want backup? I can rearrange my schedule. No, this is something I need to do alone. But Bruce, thanks. For everything. For believing in second chances. That's what partners do. Just be careful. Even dying. She's dangerous. After they hung up, Ian stood on his small balcony, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Angela was preparing for her first date in years. Bruce was probably reviewing contracts, building their future. His former employees were living their lives, moving forward. And in a federal medical facility, Rosa Martinez was dying, taking her secrets and manipulations to the grave. Tomorrow he'd face her one last time. But tonight, Ian Martinez was exactly where he needed to be in a life built on truth rather than illusion, surrounded by people who'd earned his trust rather than exploited it. It wasn't the kingdom he'd imagined. It was better. It was real. 1 year. Ian Martinez stood in his office, a real office now, with windows that actually opened and a coffee machine that purred instead of wheezed, marveling at how much could change in 12 months. Martinez and Caldwell Consulting occupied the entire third floor of a modest building in Coral Way, their client list growing as steadily as Ian's ability to trust again. "You're doing that thing again," Bruce said from the doorway, holding 2 cups from the Cuban bakery downstairs. "That staring into space like you've seen a ghost thing." "Just thinking." Ian accepted the cortadito gratefully. "A year ago today, I signed the papers selling the penthouse." "And now?" "Now I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with actual furniture I picked out myself. Progress." Bruce settled into one of their new leather chairs, bought second-hand but still an upgrade from the thrift store specials. "Speaking of progress, have you asked Angela out yet? Like, on a real date?" "We're friends." "She's seeing someone, remember? David from work." "That ended 2 months ago. You would know this if you did more than pine from afar during your coffee non-dates." Ian busied himself with paperwork. The truth was, he knew exactly when Angela's relationship had ended. She'd told him over their usual Thursday coffee, trying to laugh about how David had freaked out when she'd suggested meeting each other's kids. "Too much too fast," he'd said, which translated to, "I'm not ready for your baggage." "I'm not ready," Ian said firmly. "Neither is she." "Bullshit. You've been ready for months. You're just scared." Before Ian could respond, his phone buzzed, a FedEx delivery notification. 20 minutes later, he was holding an elegant envelope addressed in Valerie Chen's perfect script. "Together with their families, Valerie Chen and Bruce Caldwell request the honor of your presence." "You finally did it," Ian said, grinning at his partner. "When?" "6 weeks. Small ceremony at her parents' place in Pinecrest." Bruce's tough guy facade cracked, revealing genuine happiness. "I wanted to tell you in person, but Val insisted on proper invitations. You know how she is about protocol." "I'm happy for you, man. Really." "You'll be my best man?" "Try to stop me." They spent the morning reviewing contracts, their easy partnership a testament to how far they'd both come. The consulting firm had found its niche helping small to medium businesses protect themselves from internal fraud. Their tagline, "Security through experience," resonated with clients who appreciated their hard-won wisdom. At lunch, Ian's phone rang. Angela. "Hey, I know it's not Thursday, but Sophie has a thing and I'm in your neighborhood. Want to grab a quick bite?" 15 minutes later, they sat at a food truck parked near Bayfront Park, eating fish tacos and watching tourists struggle with the humidity. Angela looked tired but lovely in her nonprofit's branded polo and jeans, her hair pulled back in its signature ponytail. "Sophie's thing is college tours," she explained between bites. "University of Florida. She's convinced she wants to be a forensic accountant. Says if I could have seen the signs with her father, maybe things would have been different." That's a lot of weight for a 17-year-old to carry. "Tell me about it." "I've tried explaining that sociopaths are really good at hiding, but she's determined to be the one who catches them." Angela's smile was rueful. "At least she's channeling her trauma productively." "How are you doing with it? The college thing?" "Terrified, proud, heartbroken that she's leaving. The usual single mom cocktail of emotions." She studied him. "What about you? Any word on the book tour?" Ian grimaced. 3 weeks, 12 cities. My publisher is very excited. I'm trying not to throw up." "You'll be brilliant. You have a gift for making people understand without making them feel stupid for not seeing it themselves. Is that what I do in group? Among other things." Something shifted in her expression, a moment of vulnerability quickly masked. "Ian, can I tell you something?" "Always." I'm scared of being alone when Sophie leaves, like bone-deep terrified. Richard was a bastard, but at least the house wasn't empty, and now with her going. She trailed off, embarrassed. Sorry, that's probably too much sharing for lunch. It's not. Ian reached across the table, covering her hand with his. Being alone after decades of partnership, even bad partnership, is its own kind of grief. But you're not alone. You have friends, your work, a life you've built from scratch. That's not nothing. Angela turned her hand palm up, interlacing their fingers. Sometimes I think you're the only person who really gets it, the specific weight of our kind of loss. They sat like that for a moment, hands linked over a plastic table, two survivors recognizing themselves in each other. Then Ian's phone buzzed with a client emergency, breaking the spell. I should go, Angela said, but she seemed reluctant. Thursday? Our usual place? Wouldn't miss it. That evening, Ian attended the support group, noticing how the faces had changed over the months. Some, like Janet, had graduated to monthly check-ins. Others were new, raw with fresh betrayal. Dr. Morse guided them all with the same steady compassion. Healing isn't linear, she reminded them. Some days you'll feel like you've made no progress at all. That's normal. Growth happens in spirals, not straight lines. After the meeting, Ian waited in the parking lot. Angela emerged with Sophie, a coltish teenager with her mother's auburn hair and sharp intelligence. Mr. Martinez! Sophie bounced over. Mom says you're writing a book. That's so cool. Will you sign my copy when it comes out? Sophie, he's not a celebrity, Angela chided, but she was smiling. Not yet, Sophie said confidently. But he will be. Mom showed me the advance reviews. The New York Times called it essential reading for the age of deception. You showed her the reviews? Ian asked, oddly touched. She's proud of you, Sophie said matter-of-factly. She talks about you all the time. Ian said this. Ian thinks that, okay, time to go. Angela's face flushed red. Sophie has homework. I'm 17, not 7. I know when I'm being dismissed. Sophie grinned at Ian. She likes you, you know. In case you're as oblivious as most men. Sophie Morrison. What? Someone has to move this along. I'll be in college soon. I need to know you're taken care of. As they drove away, Angela gesticulating wildly while Sophie laughed, Ian stood in the parking lot feeling something he hadn't experienced in over 2 years. Possibility. Not just for survival or recovery, but for actual happiness. His phone rang. Carmen, who now managed the apartment building where Ian lived. Senor Ian, you have a package. From the federal prison. Should I sign for it? Ian's stomach dropped. Rosa. Even dying, she couldn't leave him in peace. Leave it with the desk, he said. I'll deal with it when I get home. But when he arrived at his apartment, the package sitting on his kitchen counter seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. Inside, he found a single sheet of paper in Rosa's once familiar handwriting. Ian, they say I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer, aggressive and inoperable. Funny how the body betrays us in the end, just like everything else. I know you hate me. You should. But before I go, I need you to know 3 things. There's an account in the Bahamas. $500K I skimmed before everything went bad. Account details enclosed. Consider it a wedding gift for when you inevitably remarry. You always were too optimistic to stay alone. Marcus, Randall, really did love me. His last letter is also enclosed. I thought about burning it, but maybe you need to see that even lies can contain truth. I did love you. Not well, not faithfully, but truly. The girl who cried at our wedding wasn't acting. She just wasn't strong enough to be the woman you deserved. I won't ask for forgiveness. Just remember me as I was in the beginning, before I became the monster in your story. Rosa. Ian sank onto his couch, the letter trembling in his hands. Even now, even dying, Rosa was trying to control the narrative. The account information was probably real, one last manipulation disguised as generosity. Marcus Stone's letter remained unopened. Some truths weren't worth knowing. He thought about calling someone Bruce, Wayne, even Angela. Instead, he fed both letters into his shredder, watching Rosa's final words become confetti. The account information he'd give to Valerie to handle properly, ensuring it went to Rosa's victims. His phone buzzed. A text from Angela. Sorry about Sophie. Teenagers have no filter. See you Thursday. Ian typed back. She's great. And yes, Thursday. Maybe somewhere nicer than our usual? I hear there's a new place on Miracle Mile. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, are you asking me on a real date, Ian Martinez? He stared at the screen, Rosa's ghost finally fading. Yes, if you're interested. Very interested. Pick me up at 7. It's a date. Outside his window, Miami glowed with its eternal promise of reinvention. Ian Martinez, 43 years old, betrayed and rebuilt, scarred but not broken, was ready to try again. Not with the naive optimism of youth, but with the careful hope of someone who'd learned that love was a risk worth taking, even after the fall. The pieces of his old life were scattered beyond repair. But the new mosaic he was building carefully, intentionally, with help from those who'd earned his trust, was beginning to form a picture he could live with. Tomorrow he'd deal with book tours and business meetings and the endless complexity of moving forward. But tonight, he had a date to plan. A real one. With someone who understood that the best love stories were written by people who'd learned to read the fine print. The federal courthouse in downtown Miami had become unwelcomely familiar to Ian Martinez. 18 months after Rosa's conviction, he found himself once again navigating security checkpoints and marble corridors, this time as a witness in the sprawling RICO case against the Valdez cartel. Mr. Martinez, thank you for coming. Assistant U.S. Attorney Patricia Newcomb greeted him in the witness waiting room. She was younger than Thornton, hungrier, with the sharp ambition of someone building their career on high-profile convictions. I know this can't be easy, returning here. Just want to get it over with, Ian said, adjusting his tie, a gift from Angela for his book tour, silk with tiny sailboats that Sophie said made him look approachable but professional. The defense may try to paint you as complicit, Newcomb warned. They'll suggest you had to know about the drug shipments, that your wife couldn't have hidden such a massive operation. Let them try. I've got nothing to hide. Good. Oh, and I should mention Rosa Martinez will be testifying today as well. The defense subpoenaed her, hoping to shift blame onto the gringo businessman. Ian's chest tightened. He'd managed to avoid seeing Rosa since her sentencing, declining her psychiatrist's repeated requests for visits. Now, circumstances were forcing a reunion he'd never wanted. She's changed, Newcomb added carefully. The cancer, the attack, just be prepared. 2 hours later, Ian entered the courtroom to a sea of faces. 12 members of the Valdez cartel sat at the defense tables, their expensive suits unable to mask the violence that had built their empire. In the gallery, he spotted familiar faces Bruce and Valerie, there for moral support, Wayne, who'd been instrumental in unraveling the cartel's money laundering, and surprisingly, Angela, who must have taken time off work. She caught his eye and mouthed, "You've got this. State your name for the record." Ian Eduardo Martinez. The questioning began, covering familiar ground. His business, Rosa's role, the discovery of her crimes. Ian answered with the practiced ease of someone who'd told this story too many times. Then came the new revelations. "Mr. Martinez," Newcomb said, producing documents, "can you identify these shipping manifests?" Ian examined them, forgeries bearing his signature, authorizing containers that had carried cocaine from Colombia to Miami. "These are fake. Rosa forged my signature. How can you be certain?" "Because on these dates I was in the hospital recovering from surgery. My signatures from that period show clear evidence of hand tremors from the pain medication. These are too steady, too perfect. Rosa practiced my signature for years. She was better at it than I was." For 2 hours, he detailed the elaborate deception, how Rosa had used his legitimate business as cover for cartel operations. The defense attorneys attacked like jackals, but Ian held firm. He'd learned that truth, plainly told, was the strongest defense against lies. Then came the moment he'd dreaded. The defense calls Rosa Martinez. The courtroom doors opened, and Ian barely recognized the woman who entered. Rosa, once vibrant and commanding, now moved with the careful steps of the seriously ill. Her prison jumpsuit hung loose on her skeletal frame. Her hair, once her pride, had gone completely gray and thin, barely covering her scalp. But her eyes, those dark eyes that had captivated and deceived him, still burned with familiar intensity. She took the stand slowly, requiring assistance from the bailiff. When she was sworn in, her voice was raspier, but still carried that Colombian lilt that had once charmed him. "Mrs. Martinez," the defense attorney began, "you were convicted of embezzling from your husband's company, correct?" "Among other things, yes." "And you did this alone, without your husband's knowledge?" Rosa's laugh was bitter, ending in a cough. "Alone? No. I had help from men who promised me the world and delivered only chains. But Ian? He knew nothing. He was too busy building his legitimate empire to notice I was building a criminal one in its shadow." "You expect us to believe?" "I expect you to believe nothing," Rosa interrupted, her voice gaining strength. "I am a liar, a thief, a woman who betrayed everyone who loved her, but in this, I tell the truth. Ian Martinez is guilty of only one crime, trusting the wrong woman." Her eyes found Ian across the courtroom. For a moment, the years fell away, and he saw flashes of the girl from the university coffee shop, the young bride spinning in white lace, the partner who'd worked beside him through countless late nights. "I destroyed everything he built," Rosa continued, still looking at Ian. "I used his company, his reputation, his love for me as tools for my greed. The Valdez cartel approached me, not him. They saw in me what they needed, someone with access and without conscience." "Mrs. Martinez," the defense attorney tried to regain control, "isn't it true that you're testifying this way because you've made a deal with the prosecution?" "What deal?" Rosa's laugh was harsh. "I'm dying. 6 months, maybe less. What can they offer me? Time off a life sentence when I won't live to serve it?" She gestured at her ravaged body. "This is my punishment, cancer in my bones, enemies in my cell block, and the knowledge that I threw away real love for an illusion of power." "Your Honor," the prosecutor objected, "the witness is making speeches." "I'll allow it," the judge ruled. "Continue, Mrs. Martinez." Rosa turned back to Ian. "You asked me once when I stopped loving you. The truth, I never stopped. I just loved myself more. Loved the thrill of deception, the power of secrets, the fantasy that I could have everything without consequence." "Mrs. Martinez," the defense attorney pressed, "these men are facing life in prison. Are you really claiming they corrupted you, not the other way around?" "We corrupted each other," Rosa said simply. "They offered money and excitement. I offered logistics and legitimacy. But they never forced me. Every choice was mine. Every betrayal, every lie, every moment I looked my husband in the eye and chose deception over truth, all mine." The testimony continued, Rosa systematically destroying any defense attempt to implicate Ian. She named names, detailed meetings, explained the intricate web of fraud with the clarity of someone who had nothing left to lose. Finally, the judge called a recess. As Rosa was helped from the stand, she paused near Ian. "You look good," she said softly. "Happy. The woman at your wedding, Valerie? Her friend, Angela." "Ah." Rosa smiled, a ghost of her old warmth. "Sophie's mother. I remember you mentioning her from group. She's lucky." "Rosa. No." She held up a hand, trembling with illness. "No forgiveness, no closure, no final scene. You gave me 20 years, Ian. I gave you betrayal. The accounts don't balance and never will." The bailiff moved to escort her out, but she turned back one last time. "The book," she said. "I read it. Every word. You were kinder to me than I deserved. I wrote the truth." "Exactly. The truth is kind compared to what I did." She straightened as much as her body allowed. "Be happy, Ian. Be stupidly, recklessly happy with your Angela. Show the universe that I didn't break your ability to love." Then she was gone, shuffling out between guards, leaving Ian standing in the courtroom aisle with tears he refused to shed. Angela appeared at his elbow. "You okay? What are you doing here?" "Bruce called. Said you might need support." She studied his face. "That was hard to watch." "She's dying," Ian said, still processing the devastation cancer had wrought. "Actually dying. Part of me thought it was another manipulation, but seeing her makes it real." They walked out together, pushing through the media scrum that had gathered for the cartel trial. In the parking garage, Angela stopped him. "Ian, what she said in there about being happy, she's right. We can't let what they did to us define our capacity for joy." "I know." He took her hands, steady in his. "That's why I'm taking you to Key West this weekend." Key West? Angela's eyes widened. Ian, we've only been dating for 3 months. And I've known for 2 months and 29 days that I want to spend my life with you. He pulled her close. I'm not saying we rush anything, but I want to show you the sunset from Mallory Square, introduce you to my favorite conch fritter place, walk on the beach where I scattered my father's ashes and told him about the woman who was helping me heal. You talk to your father about me? Every week. He would have loved you, would have said you're too good for me, and he'd have been right. Angela kissed him then, right there in the courthouse garage, with exhaust fumes and fluorescent lights as their romantic backdrop. Okay, Key West, but I'm paying for half. Deal. As they drove away in separate cars him to the office, her back to work, Ian thought about Rosa's ravaged face, about the 12 cartel members who'd spend their lives in prison, about the wreckage left by greed and deception. But mostly he thought about Sunset in Key West, about introducing Angela to his favorite spots, about building something new on foundations of truth rather than lies. His phone buzzed at a red light. A text from his editor. Book just hit the Times bestseller list. 3 in nonfiction. Congratulations. 3 months ago, that news would have been everything. Now it was just good news to share with Angela over dinner, another step forward in a life rebuilt from honesty and careful trust. The lesson, expensively learned through betrayal and loss, was simple. Love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect facades. It was about choosing to be vulnerable again, knowing the risk, understanding the cost, and deciding that connection was worth more than safety. Rosa had taught him how love could be weaponized. Angela was teaching him how it could heal. The education continued, one careful day at a time. The sunset at Mallory Square was everything Ian had promised, a masterpiece of orange and pink bleeding across the Gulf of Mexico, street performers entertaining tourists. The daily celebration of another day ended in paradise. But Angela barely noticed the spectacle. Her attention was fixed on the man kneeling before her on the concrete, a small velvet box in his trembling hands. Angela Morrison, Ian said, his voice carrying over the suddenly hushed crowd. 6 months ago, you changed my coffee order from Cortadito to Hope. You've shown me that second chances aren't just about surviving betrayal, they're about choosing to thrive despite it. Will you marry me? Sophie, who'd been in on the surprise and documenting everything with her phone, squealed, "Say yes, Mom! He already asked my permission and everything." You asked my daughter first? Angela's eyes filled with tears. Last week, she said yes but threatened bodily harm if I hurt you. Ian's smile was nervous but genuine. She also helped pick the ring. Said you'd hate anything too flashy. The ring was perfect, a simple solitaire with smaller stones flanking it. Elegant without screaming money. Angela had learned to recognize real love by its restraint, not its excess. Yes, she whispered, then louder for the cheering crowd. Yes, of course, yes. As Ian slipped the ring on her finger, the assembled tourists applauded. Someone started playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow on a ukulele. Sophie rushed to embrace them both, creating a knot of family that felt more real than any Ian had imagined in his penthouse days. Later, at dinner at Blue Heaven, their favorite restaurant from their weekend visits to Key West, the three of them planned a future that would have seemed impossible 2 years ago. I want a small wedding, Angela said, admiring how the ring caught the light from the tiki torches. Just family and close friends. Maybe on the beach? Whatever you want, Ian agreed, still looking stunned by her acceptance. Though Carmen will insist on cooking for at least 100 people. Who's Carmen? Sophie asked through a mouthful of key lime pie. Our building manager. She's been like family since before you were born. Ian smiled. You'll love her. She'll feed you constantly and tell embarrassing stories about my failed attempts at speaking Spanish. Already love her, Sophie declared. So do I call you Dad now? Stepdad? Ian? Mr. Ian? The question hung in the air, weighted with significance. Angela started to speak, but Ian held up a hand. Call me whatever feels right, he said to Sophie. You had a father. I'm not trying to replace him or erase him. I just want to be part of your family in whatever way you're comfortable with. Sophie considered this, mature beyond her 17 years. Mom says you're helping her with the nonprofit, setting up better financial controls. Trying to. Your mom's organization helps people like us, people who've been betrayed by those they trusted. It's important work. And you donate all your book profits to it. Sophie, Angela protested. What? I think it's cool. Sophie turned back to Ian. My friends think it's weird that Mom's dating someone who was in the news, but I told them you're just a regular guy who went through something horrible and came out better. That's pretty heroic if you ask me. Nothing heroic about it, Ian said quietly. Just stubborn. Too stubborn to let Rosa win by staying broken. They talked until the restaurant closed, plans spinning out like silk threads where to live. Fort Lauderdale, closer to Sophie's school and Ian's new office. When to marry, spring, after Sophie's graduation. How to blend their lives without erasing their histories. I need to tell you something, Angela said as they walked back to their hotel, Sophie running ahead to photograph cats in the fading light. David, my ex, he called last week. Wants to try again. Says he's ready now for the whole package. Ian's step faltered. And I told him I was with someone who never saw me as a package to be ready for. Someone who understood that loving me meant loving all the broken pieces, the baggage, the complications. She squeezed his hand. I told him I was with someone who'd been broken too, and understood that the cracks are where the light gets in. Leonard Cohen. Ian identified the reference. You've been reading my book quotes. I've been reading everything. Your book, Rosa's trial transcripts, articles about recovering from betrayal. I needed to understand your journey to see if there was room for me in it. There's been room for you since that first coffee after group. I just took a while to recognize it. They stopped walking, the ocean breeze carrying salt and possibility. In the distance, Sophie was charming a street artist into sketching her portrait. I won't be her, Angela said suddenly. Rosa, I need you to know that. I'm terrible with numbers. I have no interest in your business beyond making sure you're happy, and I couldn't lie convincingly if my life depended on it. I know. Ian pulled her close. That's why this works. You're nothing like her except in the ways that matter. You're brilliant, driven, compassionate. But you use those qualities to help people, not hurt them. I come with complications. Sophie's college tuition, my ex-husband's debt still surfacing, my absolute inability to cook anything beyond pasta. I come with a criminal ex-wife, a business built from the ashes of disaster, and trust issues that require their own zip code. Ian kissed her forehead. We're quite the pair. The walking wounded, Angela agreed, but walking forward. Sophie bounded back, eyes bright with excitement. The artist says he'll do a family portrait, all three of us. Can we? And so they sat for a street artist in Key West, the businessman who'd lost everything, the widow who'd discovered her life was built on lies, and the teenager, wise beyond her years. The portrait, when finished, showed three people leaning into each other, smiling despite or perhaps because of their scars. It's perfect, Sophie declared, our first official family portrait. Ian paid the artist, adding a generous tip. As they walked back to the hotel, Sophie between them chattering about graduation plans and college preparations, he felt the last walls around his heart crumble. This was what he'd been protecting himself from, not just the risk of romantic betrayal, but the vulnerability of becoming a father figure, of being needed by a child who'd already lost one dad to deception. Hey, Ian, Sophie said suddenly. I think I'll call you Dad. Not because I've forgotten my father, but because I want to forget what he became. You're showing me what a real dad looks like, someone who shows up, who's honest, who loves my mom without trying to own her. Is that okay? Ian's throat closed. He managed a nod. Good. Because I already told my friends my mom's marrying this cool guy who survived a psycho ex-wife and writes books and makes her smile like she hasn't in years. Sophie grinned. They're totally jealous. That night, after Sophie had retreated to her room to FaceTime friends about the engagement, Ian and Angela sat on their hotel balcony watching the stars over the Gulf. Bruce wants to expand the company, Ian said. Open offices in Tampa and Orlando. I'd have to travel more, but the growth potential— Do it, Angela interrupted. Build something amazing. Just come home to us at the end of the day. That's it? No worries about time apart? About building another empire? Angela turned to face him. Ian, your ambition isn't what destroyed your marriage. Rosa's betrayal did that. I fell in love with a man who builds things, who creates opportunities for others, who sees possibility where others see problems. Don't dim that light because of what she did. How'd I get so lucky twice? Ian wondered aloud. Twice? Once to survive Rosa, once to find you. 3 times, Angela corrected. You also got Sophie, and trust me, that teenager's college essay about her mom's journey from betrayal to triumph is going to make you cry. She already let me read the first draft. She wrote about you. She wrote about us, all of us, how broken people can build something whole together. Angela's engagement ring caught the moonlight. She titled it Chosen Family. In the morning, they'd drive back to Miami, back to the life waiting for them, the business to run, the nonprofit to grow, the wedding to plan, Sophie's graduation approaching like a freight train. There would be challenges, adjustments, the inevitable friction of lives combining. But tonight, in Key West, where the continent ran out of room and had to stop, Ian Martinez sat with his chosen family and felt the kind of peace that only comes from surviving the worst and choosing to risk the best. His phone buzzed Wayne Rodriguez, texting congratulations with a photo attached. The picture showed Rosa's obituary in the Miami Herald, dated tomorrow. She'd died that afternoon, alone except for the prison chaplain. Ian showed Angela, who read it silently. How do you feel? She asked. Free, he said after a long moment. Finally, completely free. They sat in silence, each processing the end of one story and the beginning of another. Somewhere in the hotel, Sophie was probably still awake, texting friends about her new family configuration. Somewhere in Miami, Bruce and Valerie were planning their own wedding, building their own second chance. Somewhere in federal prison, Rosa's body was growing cold, taking her secrets and manipulations to whatever judgment awaited. And on a balcony in Key West, 2 people who'd learned that love could be both weapon and salvation chose to believe in tomorrow, one careful promise at a time. The wedding took place on a perfect March afternoon at Matheson Hammock Park, where Biscayne Bay met the Atlantic in a gentle embrace of turquoise and jade. Ian stood barefoot in the sand, Bruce beside him as best man, watching Angela walk toward him on a path lined with conch shells and Caribbean roses. She wore a simple white sundress that flowed with the ocean breeze, Sophie at her side in pale blue, both of them radiant with a joy that had been hard-won. The gathering was intimate, maybe 60 people who'd proven themselves through the storms of the past 3 years. You ready for this? Bruce murmured, adjusting the flower in Ian's lapel. Been ready since she said yes, Ian replied, his eyes never leaving Angela's approach. The officiant, Judge Catherine Morales, the same judge who'd sentenced Rosa, now a family friend, smiled at the poetry of it all. We gather here today not just to witness a union, but a resurrection. 2 people who've learned that love isn't about perfection, but about choosing each other through imperfection. Carmen, in the front row wearing her finest dress and already crying, held a handkerchief to her face. Beside her, Wayne Rodriguez cleaned his glasses repeatedly, pretending the sea spray was affecting his vision. Valerie, now 7 months pregnant, leaned against Bruce's empty chair, her hand resting on the promise of new life. Ian, Judge Morales prompted. Your vows. Ian took Angela's hands, feeling the slight tremor that matched his own. Angela, when we met, I was a man hollowed out by betrayal, convinced that trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. You taught me that trust isn't given blindly, it's built daily through small acts of truth. You've seen my scars, my fears, my 3 a.m. doubts, and somehow found something worth loving. I promise to build our life on a foundation of honesty, to celebrate your victories as my own, and to never take for granted the miracle of being chosen by you and Sophie. Angela was crying now, the kind of tears that came from joy rather than sorrow. Ian, you showed me that starting over doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means learning from it and choosing to write a better story. You've embraced not just me, but my daughter, my complications, my own broken places. You've shown us both what real strength looks like, not the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to be vulnerable with the right person. I promise to stand beside you in success and struggle, to be your soft place to land, and to love you with a heart that's been broken and rebuilt stronger." "The rings," Judge Morales said. Sophie stepped forward with the rings they'd chosen together, simple gold bands with an inscription only they would see. "Beauty from ashes." As they exchanged rings, a pod of dolphins broke the surface beyond the ceremony, their synchronized grace a benediction from nature itself. The crowd gasped in delight, but Ian only had eyes for his bride. "By the power vested in me by the state of Florida and the triumph of hope over experience," Judge Morales declared with a grin, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ian, you may kiss your bride." The kiss was tender, a promise sealed with salt air and witnessed by those who'd walked through fire with them. As they turned to face their guests as Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, the small crowd erupted in celebration. The reception was pure Miami Carmen's Cuban feast, served family style, a live salsa band that got even the FBI agents dancing, speeches that veered between tears and laughter. Bruce, as best man, raised his glass. 3 years ago, Ian and I were both at rock bottom. Him betrayed by his wife, me questioning everything about my career and choices. We built Martinez and Caldwell Consulting not just as a business, but as proof that rock bottom can be a foundation if you're willing to build on it. Ian, brother, you've shown me that the best revenge isn't success, it's happiness. To Ian and Angela, may your love story bore your grandchildren with its lack of drama." Wayne Rodriguez spoke next, his detective's composure cracking with emotion. "I've investigated a lot of crimes in my career, but watching Ian investigate how to love again has been the case I'm proudest to witness. Angela, you're getting a man who's been tested by fire and came out pure gold. Don't let him work too many weekends." But it was Sophie who brought the house down. Standing with the poise of someone who'd grown up fast but not bitter, she looked at Ian with eyes that held no reservation. 3 years ago, my mom and I were alone, trying to figure out how to be a family of 2 when we'd always been 3. Then Ian came along not trying to be my dad, just trying to be himself. He taught me that families aren't just about blood or law, but about choice. Every day, he chooses us. Every day, we choose him back. So here's to chosen families, second chances, and parents who show us that love isn't a fantasy, it's a daily decision to show up for each other. Mom, Dad, welcome to our beautifully imperfect family. As the sun set over the bay, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Ian and Angela had their first dance to At Last by Etta James Angela's choice, simple and perfect. Other couples joined them, Bruce and Valerie, Wayne and his wife, even Carmen dancing with Miguel from the old warehouse, who'd flown in for the celebration. "No regrets?" Angela asked as they swayed together. "Only one," Ian admitted. "I wish I'd met you first. Then we wouldn't have been ready for each other. Sophie wouldn't exist. We'd be different people." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Our scars made us who we are. I wouldn't change that." Later, as the party wound down, Ian found himself standing at the water's edge, the reception behind him still glowing with light and laughter. The same bay he'd stared at from his penthouse, planning an empire. The same water that had witnessed his rise and fall and rise again. "Thought I'd find you here," Angela said, joining him, her wedding dress now sandy at the hem. "Sophie's dancing with Bruce. I think she's trying to teach him some TikTok thing." Poor Bruce. They stood together, watching the moonlight paint silver roads across the water. In the distance, Miami's skyline glittered, a city of dreams and schemes that had broken and rebuilt them both. "Do you ever think about her?" Angela asked quietly. "Rosa?" "Sometimes, less than I used to." Ian pulled his wife closer. "The anger's gone. Even the hurt has faded. What's left is gratitude, maybe. Without her betrayal, I'd never have found you." "That's very evolved of you. Dr. Morse would be proud." They laughed, remembering the support group that had brought them together. "I heard Marcus Stone got early release, good behavior, and testifying against other corrupt cops." "What do you think he'll do?" "Start over, hopefully. Find someone who loves him without conditions or conspiracies." Ian kissed the top of Angela's head. "Everyone deserves a second chance." Even Rosa deserved that, Angela said. She just didn't take it. A burst of laughter from the reception drew their attention. Sophie was now teaching Judge Morales the same dance, while Carmen directed the band to play faster. Their perfectly imperfect family, celebrating the triumph of choosing love over fear. "Ready to go back?" Angela asked. "In a minute." Ian pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. "I wanted to do this with you. One last ritual." It was the final page of his book manuscript, the dedication to Rosa he'd written but never published. Together they walked to the water's edge. Ian lit the paper with a match from the reception's citronella candles, and they watched it burn, the ashes scattered by the wind across the bay. "What did it say?" Angela asked. "To our may you find in the next life the peace that eluded you in this one." "That's beautiful." Valerie said it was too forgiving. Bruce said it was too kind, but it felt right. The last of the ashes disappeared into the darkness. Now it's really over. They walked back to their reception hand in hand, sand between their toes, hearts light with the promise of tomorrow. Sophie ran to meet them, dragging them onto the dance floor where their chosen family waited. As Ian spun his wife and daughter to the rhythm of a life rebuilt on truth, he thought about Circles, how his story had begun on a balcony overlooking this same bay, how it had spiraled through betrayal and loss, and how it had come full circle to this moment of joy. But this wasn't really an ending. It was a beginning of the Martinez-Morrison family, of a future built on tested love, of a life where trust was earned daily and happiness was chosen deliberately. Outside, the bay rolled on eternal, keeping its secrets and reflecting the stars. And in a tent on the beach, surrounded by those who'd proven that family was about more than blood or law, Ian Martinez danced with his wife and daughter, finally home in a way that no penthouse could ever provide. The boy from the docks had built his empire after all, not of money or property, but of connection, resilience, and the hard-won wisdom that the best revenge against those who try to break you is to build something better from the pieces.